Chapter 32-35. Lu Yin thought of the opportunity to cultivate the Sky Palace, which was to break through the limitless inner world and become the limitless ancestors' world. He could then use the limitless ancestors' world to cover the starry sky in his heart and turn it into the Sky Palace. Breaking through the limitless ancestors' world was a necessary opportunity that could not be avoided. Lu Yin also needed an opportunity to break through the limitless ancestors' world, and this opportunity was fabrication. Fabrication was the strongest in the universe, and Lu Yin wanted to use it to break through and reach the ancestors' world. Now the opportunity had come. Before that, Lu Yin had found the Moon Immortal with the poison of time. The Moon Immortal was the only one left in the Three Moons Alliance. She had died when the Eternals attacked with fabrication. Moon Ghost had died in the previous battle. I didn't expect to only find her now. If I had found her earlier, she wouldn't have died. Lu Yin handed the poison of time to the Moon Immortal. The Moon Immortal had a complicated expression. Everything is fate. Thank you, Headmaster. Lu Yin looked at the Moon Immortal. They had fought before when he was disguised as Yebwa. Even now, the Moon Immortal still did not know about this. Thinking of Yebwa's identity, Lu Yin did not know how to use it. First of all, the Eternals did not know that he was Yebwa. But now that the Eternals were trapped in the 6 paths of reincarnation realm, and there was no more divine power outside the realm, it seemed pointless to use Yebwa's identity. He could only think about it later. Next, Lu Yin gave the poison of time to Hozhu and the Ice Master. He then went to Bing Exen of the Ice Spirit Clan and looked at her in a daze. The longer two people were apart, the more unfamiliar they would feel. But Lu Yin treated Ming Yen differently. When he looked at Bing Exen, he did not feel unfamiliar. Instead, he felt warmth. He knew that there was always someone who needed him, someone who supported him, and someone who was waiting for him to return. It was a very comfortable feeling. Lu Yin did not stay for long and left. Fabrication's starry sky was deeper than the 5th mainlands, perhaps because there were not many stars. The huge fabrication lay across the starry sky. It was a colossus, and Lu Yin was about to face this colossus. I don't know why you're here, but I must warn you that fabrication's power is terrifying. Even Hong Yen and Lu Yuan from the primordial space can't compare. Be careful, Black Wuxian reminded him. Lu Yuan walked out from behind. Little Seven, is this your opportunity? Lu Yin nodded. I want to use fabrications to break through the limitless inner worlds. In the words of ordinary people, you are playing with fire, He Wuxian said. Lu Yin did not hesitate and walked towards Su Wang. Su Wang could devour energy and no living creature dared to get close. Even Great Elder Shan Gu had to rely on Limitless Empire's mecha to get close, and divine punishment was blocked by Su Wang. If not for Lu Yin's scheme, Elder Gu would not have been affected by the heaven's punishment if he had stayed behind. Lu Yin was now facing Su Wang alone, and he also had the 4 locks array on him, which was very dangerous. Su Wang was in a deep slumber as if he would never wake up. The closer Lu Yin got to it, the more he could feel the pressure coming from it. This pressure came from the creature itself, and even his cultivation base could not compensate for it. It caused Lu Yin's entire body to turn cold. Every breath falsehood took seemed to expand the cosmos, but it also seemed to crush it. Every time he flipped over, he would be able to create a world of nothingness. With the time poison, he felt as if his strength was being devoured, but it wasn't obvious and didn't affect what he was about to do. He came to Su Wang's side and raised his head. When he turned his head, everything that entered his eyes was boundless. It was just too enormous. He raised his hand and placed it on the surface of Su Wang's body. There was no temperature to his touch. It was neither hot nor cold, and it felt as hard as stone. It had been a long time since he had felt this way. What would a normal person feel if they placed their hand on a mountain that reached into the clouds? This was the same feeling that Su Wang had right now. It was an unshakable feeling. This was the feeling. Without this pressure, how could he have used this opportunity to break through the infinite ancestors' realm? Lu Yin took a deep breath, and his eyes suddenly widened as an invisible current rippled. Come. As soon as he spoke, he punched Su Wang's body. Lu Yuan stared at this scene, feeling a little nervous. He was afraid that Lu Yin would not be able to hold on and be crushed to death by Su Wang. He waited for a while, but there was no reaction. Lu Yuan and He Wuxian looked at each other and then stared blankly into the distance. Lu Yin looked at Su Wang, but there was no movement. Did he not feel it? That was awkward. Even though the 4 locks array had sealed off all of Su Wang's strength, and the remaining strength was not enough to pose a threat to an expert, it was still a progenitor's strength. How could Su Wang not feel it? Su Wang moved as if he was dreaming and wanted to flip over. Lu Yin pursed his lips and raised his hand. Black and purple spread out as he punched out with Palm Realm battle force. There was still no reaction. Lu Yin's punch had no effect on Su Wang at all. Lu Yin did not believe that Su Wang would not move, and he continued to attack. After nearly 100 punches, Su Wang finally moved. This time it did not move in a dream. Instead, it swung its tail at Lu Yin as if it was chasing away a mosquito. Lu Yin hurriedly activated the victorious fight technique and crossed his arms in front of him to block the attack. Bang! There was a soft sound as Lu Yin was sent flying by Su Wang's tail. Lu Yuan was shocked. Little 7. He hurriedly chased after Su Wang. He Wuxian frowned. Su Wang couldn't have died, right? He hurriedly chased after Su Wang as well. Far away, Lu Yin crashed through dozens of planets before finally crashing into a planet made entirely of grayish-brown stone. The remaining force of his attack had pierced through the planet, and it was on the verge of shattering. Little 7. Lu Yuan arrived. Lu Yin suddenly sat up. Ancestor, I'm fine. Lu Yuan relaxed. That attack wasn't weak. Lu Yin moved his arm. It's equivalent to an attack from a sequence law powerhouse. It's not enough to do anything to me. Su Wang hasn't woken up yet. Continue. Black Wuxian suggested, you can ask your ancestor to hit it for you. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. That was right. He looked at Lu Yuan. Ancestor, please hit it for me. Lu Yuan frowned. It's very dangerous. If that thing gets serious, ancestor, my power has been sealed. Su Wang can break through the seal of power, Lu Yin said. Lu Yuan thought about it and agreed. All right, then get ready. Lu Yin approached Su Wang once again. His body withered as he prepared himself. Far away, Lu Yuan slowly clenched his fist and punched out, shattering the void and tearing open a huge void realm. It landed on Su Wang's body, and at the same time, a black line followed the force and also landed on Su Wang's body. It came from Black Wuxian. The two forces hit Su Wang at the same time, causing it to wake up and howl in pain. Both Lu Yuan and Black Wuxian were strong enough to fight Su Wang. Su Wang could only devour energy and increase his strength, but he did not have any other abilities. When Lu Yuan and Black Wuxian's attacks landed at the same time, there were not many in the universe who could withstand them. Su Wang. The world crumbled in front of Lu Yin's eyes. Su Wang stood up and howled in pain as it whipped its tail in the direction of the attack. Lu Yin was already prepared to take on Su Wang's shocking attack. Bang! There was a loud bang as Lu Yin was sent flying. This time it was completely different from before. He was directly sucked into the void realm, crushing the void along the way. He spat out a mouthful of blood and disappeared. Far away, Lu Yuan was shocked and glared at Black Wuxian. Black Wuxian was indifferent. I was just afraid that you wouldn't bear to. Don't worry, you won't die. Lu Yuan gave Black Wuxian a deep look and then chased after Lu Yin. Black Wuxian stood in place without moving. In the distance, Su Wang continued to twist and turn. That attack had left obvious marks on its body, and it was in so much pain that it wanted to roll around. Lu Yin was also in pain, but it only lasted for a moment before he lost all feeling. He had already become numb. He did not know how far he had flown. Perhaps he was still in the void realm, or perhaps he was in outer space. Little 7. Golden light blossomed as Lu Yin was caught by the Divine Seal catalog. Little 7, how are you? Lu Yuan asked anxiously. Lu Yin spat out a mouthful of blood and his face was pale. He could not speak, and when he looked down he saw that one of the 4 seals on his right wrist had shattered. His strength had returned. He spat out another mouthful of blood before finally catching his breath. Ancestor, I'm fine. Lu Yuan heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. How are you? Lu Yin panted heavily, unable to move. He had lost all feeling in his body, and it had been a long time since he had felt this way. He had been injured in his battle with Bai Xianer and Tianfeng, but it was not like this. Now it was as if he had been crushed by some colossus. His strength had reached its limit, and even his body had recovered in an instant. Fortunately, he had not broken through the limit, or his injuries would not have been as severe as they were now. After a while, Lu Yin gradually regained his ability to move. In the distance, Su Wang approached and stared at Lu Yin. The Divine Seal Catalog's light had attracted its attention. Ancestor, I'll do it myself. Lu Yin moved his limbs and a crisp sound rang out. He seemed to be heavily injured, but he had not broken through the limit. He just needed to slow down a little. Lu Yuan glanced at Su Wang. Don't force yourself. Don't worry. Lu Yin grinned. Su Wang's strength had surprised him. This inhuman strength was unparalleled, and it surpassed Lu Yuan, Hongyan Mavis, and naturally Lu Yin himself. He longed for this strength. If he could possess it, then it was unknown whether the Eternals would be able to escape to the 6 paths of reincarnation during the second battle of Calamity Realm. That was the limit of the universe's current strength. He wanted to possess this strength. This was a strength that could change qualitatively. Su Wang swam through space, and when the Divine Seal Catalog's golden light disappeared, it stopped, as if it could no longer see its surroundings clearly. Lu Yuan distanced himself from Lu Yin. Lu Yin faced Su Wang and a boundless inner world appeared. Things move in the opposite and his body was covered with Palm Realm battle force. Come. He then punched at Su Wang. This punch was completely different from the one before, and it was like the difference between heaven and earth. This punch slammed into Su Wang's head, causing it to roar in anger and charge at Lu Yin. Although this punch was extremely powerful and enraged Su Wang, it did not cause much damage to him. Instead, Su Wang's enormous body slammed into Lu Yin and sent him flying. Chapter 32-36. To Su Wang, Lu Yin was like a punching bag. He was constantly sent flying through space, but he was still able to retaliate. He was a punching bag that could retaliate. He spat out blood and was sent flying again and again. Eventually he couldn't take it anymore and his limits were broken. Lu Yin's body cracked open and he was seriously injured. Su Wang locked onto him and kept charging at him. As long as Lu Yin didn't want to be hit, Su Wang wouldn't be able to hit him. He used the reverse step and easily avoided Su Wang's attacks. He didn't need parallel time, he just needed to be fast. Lu Yuan saw that Lu Yin was seriously injured and his heart leapt to his throat. Wu Tian had arrived at some point, and when he saw this scene he praised, "We never thought that the Lu family would have such a descendant." "Are you saying that I can't take hardships?" Lu Yuan retorted. Wu Tian replied, "I'm saying that you don't have the talent." Lu Yuan wasn't in the mood to talk to Wu Tian right now. He stared at Lu Yin, afraid that something would happen to him. Wu Tian looked at Lu Yin. This child might be a turning point in human history. Whether or not he can break fate depends on him. Fertile Earth, protect him well. Anyone can die but not him. With that he left. Lu Yuan shook his head. Nonsense. Lu Yin avoided Su Wang as he rolled his die. He watched as it slowly stopped spinning. 4 pips in the time-stop space just right. The scene in front of him changed and Lu Yin appeared in the time-stop space. Blood flowed continuously and he sat down. Intense pain came from every corner of his body. He was seriously injured. Fortunately, they were all external injuries and wouldn't take too long to recover. 1 year. 1 year was enough. Lu Yin closed his eyes and slowly recovered. A year later, Lu Yin left the time-stop space, but only a second had passed in the outside world. Su Wang continued to charge at him from afar, but Lu Yin disappeared in that second. Su Wang was confused, but Lu Yin appeared again a second later. Lu Yin had already recovered. No matter how serious his external injuries were, they were still manageable for a powerhouse like him. Ming Yan's vitality had disappeared, and Ancestor Ku had been killed once. Their injuries would take a long time to recover, so Ancestor Ku had been sleeping all this time to recover on his own. Now that Lu Yin had clashed with Su Wang, his injuries were obvious. Although they seemed serious, they were easy to recover from. Come. Lu Yin roared. The physical pain was driving him crazy. It was too painful, and the more it hurt, the more clear-headed he became. This was what he needed right now. Without pain, where would the strength come from? Boom! There was a deafening collision as the void world was torn apart in all directions. Lu Yin was sent flying by Su Wang, and as expected, his power had no effect on Su Wang. The surface of his body cracked open once more. When things reached an extreme, they would eventually reach their limits. Su Wang roared angrily and chased after Lu Yin. Lu Yuan clenched his fists. He had never seen Lu Yin in such a miserable state. Lu Yin could defeat Su Wang with his various techniques, but at the very least, Su Wang would not be able to defeat him. However, he had used his own strength to fight against Su Wang's strength, and only he could experience the misery that came with it. He was heavily injured again, but he continued to roll his die. Once, twice, thrice, and on the third roll he rolled 4 pips and entered the time-stop space to recover. Then the scene in front of him changed and he returned to outer space. His body recovered, but he was heavily injured again. This time he used his speed to delay Su Wang for 10 days. After 10 days he continued to roll his die and recover. Again he was heavily injured, recovered and continued. Su Wang growled. Lu Yin's repeated provocations and collisions had infuriated it to the point where it no longer cared where Lu Yin was. It rammed into the void in all directions, causing the entire region to tremble. It knew that as long as Lu Yin recovered he would definitely appear in front of it and clash with it. There was no need for it to specifically search for him. Hongyan Mavis had arrived and she stared blankly at this scene. She recalled how Lu Yin had challenged Fengbo in the Mirage domain. He'll definitely get what he wants. Lu Yuan had already calmed down. Su Wang could not directly kill Lu Yin and that was enough. Blacklist God had already left. Lu Yuan was always there and the people around him constantly changed. They had all seen Lu Yin fight Su Wang to the death. Even though no news had been released, those who had witnessed it all suppressed their amazement and admiration. Lu Yin had not only relied on his innate talent, turbid treasures, or background to reach his current level. He had also relied on his own hard work. No one could help him in his battle with Su Wang. Not even Lu Yuan could. 38 times. Lu Yin had clashed with Su Wang 38 times, and he had been heavily injured 38 times. Finally, Lu Yin was able to see the essence of Su Wang's power. Blacklist God and the others had said that Su Wang was born from the universe, and its power was actually a type of sequence law. Thus, when Tianfa had fought Su Wang, it had believed that Su Wang's power would not be able to affect it. It had retreated because Tianfa's chains of time could not trap Su Wang. However, Lu Yin had asked Patriarch Lu Yuan later, and the Patriarch had said that he had not seen any sequence particles in Su Wang. Without sequence particles, how could there be sequence laws? But without sequence laws, how could Su Wang not be able to harm Tianfa with his power? Logically speaking, Su Wang's power was a sequence law. This phenomenon reminded Lu Yin of the zombie god. The zombie god had hidden his sequence particles within his body, making him nearly immortal. If not for the karmic retribution, Lu Yin and the others would not have been able to kill him. If the zombie god was like that, then was Su Wang's power the same? If Su Wang could hide its sequence particles within its body, then it must have a method to do so. This method was exactly what Lu Yin needed. If it was not a sequence law, then that would be even better. Lu Yin wanted to know where Su Wang's terrifying power came from. Only those who had reached his level would know that although power seemed to originate from within a creature's body, once it reached a certain level, that creature would definitely use some method to store it. It was not as simple as just having that power. If Su Wang's power could become the strongest in the universe, then it was not just because of its size. Otherwise, the ancient gods would have made themselves the largest in the universe. Su Wang had to have his own method of storing power. And now Lu Yin had found it. He could clearly see how Su Wang had done it. It had formed its own power into points, and then used a strange force to connect these points within its body and interact with each other. If the points of power could be seen clearly, then the strange method of connecting them would allow one to see the same tightly connected points of power without any gaps, even if one looked at it through a magnifying glass. This was the essence of Su Wang's power. Creatures were very strange. They could not see the structure of their bodies, but those structures were extremely intricate. Su Wang had not intentionally used this method to store power, but its power was too great, and it had become an instinct. This was exactly what Lu Yin needed. 38 grievous injuries had allowed him to recognize this power, and he retreated step by step, putting some distance between him and Su Wang. Su Wang remained where he was, staring at Lu Yin without moving. Lu Yin had caused it to panic. It was clearly the powerhouse here and could send Lu Yin flying, but Lu Yin would always appear unscathed. This phenomenon was a little strange to it, and it instinctively didn't dare to approach him. Lu Yin was astonished. Su Wang was not coming? He had originally planned to enter the time-stop space to study it, but it did not matter if Su Wang did not come. Otherwise he would have to wait another 10 days to roll his die again. An infinite inner world appeared. Su Wang was furious when it saw the infinite inner world. Every time Lu Yin collided with it, an infinite inner world would appear. It thought that Lu Yin was going to collide with it again, so it decided to collide with Lu Yin first. Lu Yin hurriedly dodged. Forget it. I'll just wait another 10 days and roll my die to enter the time-stop space. In the distance, Lu Yuan smiled. Xiaoqi must have discovered something and was no longer rashly colliding with Su Wang. I was good. His heart trembled every time he collided with Su Wang, although he had gotten used to it. To the side, Sapphire Zhou said, I'm starting to admire him. It's not easy for you to admire someone. Back then you only admired Chu Hei out of the 9 of us, Lu Yuan mocked. Sapphire Zhou said, Chu Hei's deathly aura was so heavy that even Master was amazed. He said that once he broke through to the primordial realm, no one in the universe would be able to compete with him in terms of absolute battle prowess. Even Master wasn't confident. But he still lost. Lu Yuan sighed. Sapphire Zhou was curious. How did he lose? Lu Yuan shook his head. I don't know, just like how we don't know how you disappeared. Sapphire Zhou fell silent. I believe that he's not dead. Deathly aura is a type of power to him. Let's hope so. 10 days later, Lu Yin rolled his die 4 times, but he didn't get enhance even once. He had no choice but to hide with Su Wang for another 10 days before rolling enhance and entering the time-stop space. After entering the time-stop space, Lu Yin used his limitless inner world, and the energy lines did not collide in a disorderly manner. The inspiration for the disorderly collisions came from the destruction of spacetime that he had seen while fishing in the river of time. The disorderly collisions produced power that was then displayed through the limitless inner world in the form of energy lines. It was then absorbed and collided again, truly turning the finite into infinite. This was one of the reasons, but there was a limit to how much he could use this infinite power. This limit was the limit of how much he could use. Once he broke through this limit, he would not be able to withstand it, and he would be heavily injured even without his enemies attacking. The essence of power that he had seen through Su Wang was the final step to perfecting his limitless inner world. He wanted the limitless inner world to produce infinite power, and the power that he could use was also infinite. This was the true limitless inner world, or rather, the limitless ancestral world. Lu Yin began to experiment. The process was long, and changing the nature of one's power was not much easier than creating a battle technique. Even though he had seen through the essence of Su Wang's power, it was still extremely difficult for him to try it out with his human body. The energy lines condensed with a strange force, and if he was not careful they would stagger. Once they did, his body would feel as if it had been struck. 1 or 2 of them were fine, but if there were too many of them it would cause more damage to his body. Half a year passed and Lu Yin continued to experiment with condensing the energy lines. He could already condense them to his wrist, which was his entire palm, and then spread to his entire body. Just one palm took him half a year, and he had lost count of how many times he had failed. His palm had been hit countless times by the energy lines, and the further he progressed the more energy lines there were, and the more damage his body would have to endure. Chapter 30-37. After nearly a year in the time-stop space, Lu Yin's arm suddenly split apart and he reappeared in the real universe. He had no choice but to deal with Su Wang not daring to approach him. The poison of time had also consumed a lot of energy, and he wouldn't be able to last much longer. He continued to roll the die. This time it went smoothly and he immediately rolled 4 pips. Lu Yin entered the time-stop space once more and spent a year to form strange lines of energy in his arms. He called this method the unbounded realm. The initial stages of the unbounded realm were difficult, but Lu Yin became more proficient as he progressed. After a month in Su Wang's space, Lu Yin rolled the time-stop space 3 times, which meant that in 3 years his entire body was filled with the unbounded realm. For a moment, an endless radiance circulated, and the lines of energy flickered continuously. This radiance reminded Lu Yin of the first time he had met Mr. Mu, when his physical strength had reached the limits of that realm. Right, he had forgotten that his physical strength hadn't reached the limit after breaking through to half-ancestor. Now that he had broken through to the progenitor realm, he could be considered a progenitor. He had finally reached the limit of the unbounded realm, and his body glowed with radiance. Lu Yin stood in the time-stop space not knowing how strong he was. He only knew that the unbounded realm had given him strength that surpassed anything he had ever experienced before, and this was only the first step of the unbounded realm. The second step was to disperse and condense at will, using the lines of energy in his infinite inner world to cover his entire body and form the unbounded realm. The third step didn't require him to form the unbounded realm. As long as he was in the infinite inner world, he would be in the unbounded realm, possessing and controlling boundless energy. These were the 3 steps that Lu Yin had set for his own strength transformation. Now he had to break through to the infinite ancestors' world. Lu Yin appeared in Su Wang's space, and there was only a small amount of the poison of time left. However, he didn't need it anymore as he had seen through the essence of Su Wang's power. Su Wang's value had come to an end. Su Wang's enormous eyes stared at Lu Yin as he looked into the distance. At this moment, Lu Yin gave off a very familiar feeling. It wasn't a familiarity that stemmed from their many clashes, but rather a familiarity that stemmed from their strength. Was it hostility? That wasn't it either. Su Wang was at a loss and could only stare at Lu Yin in a daze. More things had happened than it had ever experienced in its entire life. In the distance, Lu Yuan and Xianxia both looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin's aura had changed. Hongyan Mavis had arrived as well, and she looked at Lu Yin. The starry sky was silent. No one spoke. Lu Yin looked up at the boundless starry sky. His boundless inner world appeared and his power lines constantly collided. With the boundless inner world as a guide, he broke through to the ancestral world. Rumble! There was an explosion in outer space which gave Su Wang a fright. He stared at Lu Yin warily, not understanding what had just happened. All he knew was that Lu Yin was giving off an unusual sense of danger. In the distance, Lu Yuan, Hongyan Mavis and Jialan Jilua widened their eyes. Was he about to break through? Didn't he break through to the ancestor realm? Jialan Jilua was stunned. Lu Yuan grinned and laughed proudly. Little Seven has 4 inner worlds. Jialan Jilua opened his mouth wide. There was such a thing. Hongyan Mavis stared at Lu Yin. He was breaking through to the progenitor realm with an unlimited inner world, which meant that his strength would undergo a metamorphosis. Right? She suddenly recalled that Lu Yin had given her a similar feeling to a certain life form. A strength beast. Hongyan Mavis stared blankly at the gorilla-like life form that had appeared from the void. That life form that gave off a similar feeling to Lu Yin was a strength beast. Hongyan Mavis had not expected that a strength beast would appear just as she thought about it. Lu Yin looked in a certain direction, where a giant gorilla tore through the void and walked out. Although it was not as large as Su Wang, it was not much different. Its entire body seemed to be made of steel and it was filled with power. Every breath it took caused the heavens to collapse, and with a roar the entire universe seemed to be stirred up by a tsunami that surged towards Lu Yin. Following that, all sorts of strange life forms walked out from all directions. Although Lu Yin did not recognize them, they all had one similarity: their strength. These life forms seemed to have been born from power and they all stared at Lu Yin. Lu Yin understood that this was his calamity. He did not walk the path of astral origins but rather his own path. Thus, breaking through to the progenitor realm did not require an astral origin tribulation, but rather the universe itself. When the mortal world had broken through to the progenitor world, it had attracted the superposition of many parallel spacetimes in an attempt to destroy Lu Yin. The commotion had been so great that it had shaken the entire battlefield. Breaking through to the progenitor realm from the infinite inner worlds had not caused as much of a commotion as the mortal worlds, but that was because the nature of the power was different. The infinite inner worlds had used power to break through to the progenitor realm, but there would also be existences that contained power to stop Lu Yin. The one that Lu Yin was most wary of was that gorilla. Not only did the gorilla's appearance make Lu Yin wary, but it also attracted Su Wang's attention. Su Wang glared at the gorilla and immediately went on guard, sensing a threat from its own kind. In the distance, Lu Yuan blurted out, "That's a strength beast?" Jialanjula looked at Hongyan Mavis. "That's a strength beast?" Hongyan Mavis's expression turned ugly. "That's right, it's a strength beast. It was born from the universe and possesses an irresistible power. It's the strongest life form I've ever seen. I've fought it many times and without exception I've lost to it in terms of power. Fertile Earth, you once wanted to challenge a strength beast as well. I told you that if you can't beat me then you can't beat a strength beast." "That's a strength beast." Lu Yuan looked fearfully at the gorilla in the distance. That strength beast didn't pose much of a threat to him because it wasn't just powerful. However, in terms of pure strength he wasn't a match for it. Even Hongyan Mavis wasn't a match for it. Even his master might not be able to beat that beast in terms of absolute strength. Hongyan Mavis's voice was low. Back then I searched through space-time to challenge powerful life forms and defeated most of them. Even if there were some that I couldn't defeat, they couldn't beat me. With the Mavis tree I'm invincible. Only the strength beast can topple the Mavis tree with brute strength. Whether it's Fengbua or the corpse god, they both need to rely on sequence laws and various methods to topple the Mavis tree. Only the strength beast can topple it with brute strength. Tell little Seven to be careful. Even without Hongyan Mavis's warning, Lu Yin knew that Su Wang and the strength beast were the ones he was most concerned about. If not for the 4 locks array, he wouldn't have cared about these life forms at all. However, with 3 of his own powers locked down by the array, it would be troublesome to deal with them. Fortunately, he was able to see through the essence of Su Wang's power. Lu Yin looked around and saw that there were no less than 100 life forms surrounding him. They had all come from different parallel spacetimes, and it was as if they had been summoned to step into this spacetime. There were always calamities and tribulations, and this universe was not something that they could understand at the moment. Lu Yin clenched his fists. Come on, it's time to compete in strength. A roar came from the giant gorilla. All of the life forms looked over. The gorilla spread out its arms and punched each other, the resulting shockwaves visible to the naked eye overturning the void and spreading into the distance. The 100 or so powerful life forms around them all revealed looks of fear and retreated. The gorilla roared again. All of the life forms fled without a trace. The gorilla's large eyes stared at Lu Yin. It was the strongest life form in this universe, and from its point of view Lu Yin was its prey. However, it had clearly forgotten that there was still Su Wang. Su Wang didn't leave and just stared at the gorilla. It felt a familiar feeling. It was deterrence. Yes, it was deterrence. It had once intimidated the life forms of its own universe, just like the gorilla. This scene was all too familiar. Lu Yin met the gorilla's gaze and saw the boundless fighting spirit in its eyes. It wanted to compete in strength. Seeing that the gorilla was about to charge over, Lu Yin pointed at Su Wang. There's another one. The gorilla turned around and saw Su Wang. Su Wang was huge, but it wasn't a life form from this universe. The gorilla hadn't noticed it at first and had assumed that it had run away like the other life forms. The gorilla was instantly enraged and turned to roar at Su Wang. Su Wang's tail twitched as it roared back. The gorilla's deterrence had also angered it. For a moment, the 2 giant life forms roared at each other in outer space, completely forgetting about Lu Yin. Lu Yin exhaled as the threads of power from his endless inner world covered his entire body and strengthened his indomitable realm. From a distance, it looked like the threads of power were piercing through his body as they constantly blossomed with light. His entire being seemed to have ascended to a higher level with an ethereal and valiant aura. In the distance, Hongyan Mavis stared at Lu Yin. His aura was becoming more and more similar to the strength beasts, as if they were the same type of power. The radiance on Lu Yin's body grew even more resplendent, like a bright lamp that illuminated the dark universe. Su Wang and the strength beast's confrontation reached its limit, and they both charged at each other at the same time. Boom! There was a loud explosion that was followed by the shattering of outer space. The endless universe shattered layer by layer as a huge force was released throughout space. Even Lu Yuan and the rest could feel it. That force swept past, and Sapphire Giloa felt like she was being pushed back by an invisible force. The fact that she was being pushed back showed just how powerful the force was, and this was just the aftermath. The void world frantically spread out and was easily struck out. Su Wang and the strength beast had forgotten about their surroundings and Lu Yin as they fought for the position of supreme power in this universe. Sounds of explosions and collisions rang out, causing the starry sky to be in disarray. Like a mirror, the shattered pieces became more and more concentrated. The 2 colossal beings also disappeared into the world of nothingness from time to time and reappeared from time to time. Their bodies seemed to be incomplete. I never thought that there would be a life form in this universe that could compare to the strength beasts, Hongyan Mavis exclaimed. Lu Yuan replied, it's not just strength. If the strength beasts only had strength, then they would lose. Su Wang can devour strength. Thank you for the tips. From tomorrow will be better. 19147. Thank you. Follow the Wind will do his best to return the chapters 10. Thank you for your support. Chapter 3238. Hongyan Mavis shook her head. You underestimate the power beast. They don't need anything else. Their own strength is enough to ensure that even if Xuang absorbs their strength, Xuang won't be able to gain an advantage in a short period of time. Strength is already a very weak consumption for these two behemoths. It will take a very long time to decide the victor through strength alone. Xiaoqi's breakthrough from the ancestral world has attracted the universe's suppression of the limit. That's why the power beasts have appeared. They can't fight Xuang for long. Then what will happen? Sapphire Zhou was confused. Hongyan Mavis' face was solemn. If the power beasts and Xuang can't decide the victor in a short period of time, they will attack Xiaoqi at the same time, Lu Yuan finished. Hongyan Mavis nodded. Then won't he be miserable? Sapphire Zhou was dumbfounded. Lu Yuan's face was extremely ugly. It was more than miserable. How could he survive against two behemoths at the same time? Perhaps Xuang's existence was the universe's obstruction to Xiaoqi's breakthrough. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any calamity when breaking through to the ancestral world outside the origin space. There is only one exception, and that is when the person's strength approaches a certain limit of the universe or breaks through a certain state. For example, the mortal ancestral world that Xiaoqi broke through before can create spacetime. That's why it attracted the suppression of the surrounding parallel spacetime. Once Xiaoqi creates a parallel spacetime, it will break the pattern of the original spacetime. It's not that the spacetime has a consciousness, but it's their instinct. The universe we live in seems like a region without consciousness or consciousness, but it has the ability to repair itself. It's like the natural environment of a planet. As long as it doesn't have the ability to destroy the entire planet, no matter what a creature does on the planet, it will be repaired by the natural environment in the end. The mortal ancestral world is like that, and it's the same for the infinite inner worlds. Xiaoqi's breakthrough from the infinite ancestral world will touch the limit of human strength. This is not a state that the universe should exist in, so it attracted the power beast. It can be said that the universe itself is stopping Xiaoqi from breaking through, or it can be said that the power beasts have sensed the threat and come to stop it. Hongyan Mavis said, "The reason why I haven't broken through to the primordial realm is because I've been missing for too long and haven't adapted to it. Secondly, once I break through, I will definitely touch this limit." Like the strength beast? Jialan Jiluo asked. Hongyan Mavis nodded. Master has warned us not to break through to the primordial realm so easily. That should be the reason. Master knows very well that it's possible for all of us to touch a certain limit of the universe, which will lead to bad calamities. If I draw over a strength beast when I break through to the primordial realm, the chances of me breaking through will be less than 10%. Now Xiaoqi is equivalent to us. If Master knew of his current strength, he would definitely warn him not to easily break through to the progenitor realm because his 4 inner worlds have all touched the limits of the universe. Lu Yuan blamed himself. I should have thought of this earlier. Xiaoqi, if it doesn't work, we can help you get rid of the beast. In the distance, Lu Yin overheard their conversation. Lu Yuan and the others were actually telling him to be mentally prepared. As he watched Su Wang and the beast wrestle, the light on his body grew brighter and brighter. Calamities and tribulations were just calamities and tribulations. The existence of calamities and tribulations did not mean that they could not break through the ancestral world. After all, this was not the origin space. This tribulation was different from the origin tribulation. Just as Lu Yuan had said, it was not impossible for others to intervene in such a calamity. After breaking through his ancestral world, it was entirely possible for others to deal with the calamities and tribulations. Su Wang was an example of this. Otherwise, Su Wang would have suffered an even greater calamity when he wrestled with the beast. The Eternals had not interfered when he had broken through to the mortal ancestral world because the calamities brought about by the overlapping of parallel spacetime were too great. There was not much point in them interfering, and if they did, they would be crushed by the parallel spacetime. It was better to let Lu Yin deal with it himself. Lu Yin was not pretentious. Forefather, if those 2 monsters cause trouble for me before I break through to the ancestral world, please help me block them. Lu Yuan nodded. It's a small matter. This was not a competition of strength, and Lu Yuan alone could deal with Su Wang and the beast. Lu Yin focused on breaking through to the ancestral world. This universe had probably not expected Su Wang to appear here and be able to block the beast. In reality, these creatures had only appeared because they were struggling against the limit guard. No matter what, they could not stop Lu Yin from breaking through to the infinite ancestral world. As the lines of power continued to enter his body, Lu Yin opened his arms and allowed the light to submerge him. The beast suddenly turned to stare at Lu Yin, leaping up and smashing down with a fist to prevent Lu Yin from breaking through. Lu Yuan snorted, and beside him Hongyan Mavis' eyes blazed. "I'll do it." She then leapt forward and the Mavis god tree appeared. It swayed as an endless amount of power entered her body, and she punched out at the beast as well. Bang! The void exploded and both the beast and Hongyan Mavis retreated at the same time. The beast looked over and roared angrily, recognizing Hongyan Mavis. Hongyan Mavis rubbed her wrist. "We meet again, little monkey. Let's see how much your strength has increased." The beast roared at the sky and leapt towards Hongyan Mavis. Hongyan Mavis was petite, but she exploded with a terrifying strength. She punched out, causing ripples in the void to form dozens of waves that tore through the void and smashed towards the beast. On the other side, Su Wang also charged towards Lu Yin, instinctively feeling that Lu Yin was becoming more and more of a threat. This time Lu Yuan acted. The general appointment platform slammed into Su Wang's body from the side, almost knocking it over. Su Wang was furious and glared at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan raised his head. "The scars that Tianfa left on your body aren't light. What, do you want me to leave something behind for you?" Su Wang whipped its tail and sent the general appointment platform flying towards Lu Yuan. Jiawan Jilua sighed. Since ancient times, who had ever been protected by the 3 realms and 6 Daoists when breaking through to the progenitor realm? This was probably the first. However, most of the cultivators that they had seen break through to the progenitor realm had been in the Genesis space, and they had been unable to help. This situation was very rare. The heavens trembled. Although Hongyan Mavis was weaker than the beast in terms of strength, she had more than just strength. There was no need to even mention Lu Yuan. He could stop both Su Wang and the beast on his own, so it was not difficult for him to stop Su Wang alone. Lu Yin was completely focused. When the light reached its peak, it suddenly dissipated and his unbounded realm disappeared as well. The light reappeared and he had taken the second step of the unbounded realm. Breaking through to the unbounded progenitor's world was actually the third step of the unbounded realm. Fusing one's body with the unbounded progenitor's world meant that it was no longer the progenitor's world. Instead, Lu Yin himself was equivalent to a living being from the unbounded progenitor's world. The light suddenly spread out and spread across the entire universe. In an instant it swept past Su Wang, the beast, Lu Yuan, Hongyan Mavis, Garan Jilua, and even the distant stars before finally disappearing. Everyone looked at Lu Yin, but he was looking at Lu Yin. He had succeeded. His limitless inner world had successfully broken through to the unbounded progenitor's world. He had also felt the surging power, which was similar to the essence of Su Wang's power. The unbounded realm was actually a transition. If not for this transition, even if he had broken through to the unbounded progenitor's world, there would not have been much of a change. Perhaps he would not have attracted the beast's calamity. But things were different now. He seemed to have walked a path of strength that no human had ever walked before. It was just like how the ancient gods had created battle force and domains in the Palm realm, and how the giants had created the Genesis space. The nature of his power had never been seen in humans before. Even Hongyan Mavis was not like this. He had opened up a new path for humans to cultivate their strength. At the same time, the Azure Sky Palace had also been completed the moment the unbounded progenitor's world transformed. Actually, it should not be said that it had been completed, but rather that it could be used. In the eyes of Lu Yuan and the others, although Lu Yin's appearance had not changed, his gaze had become more profound. Just by standing there he seemed to be blocking everything. Furthermore, Lu Yin's hair seemed to have grown longer, and there seemed to be some sort of current flowing around his body. "Little 7, it's done?" Lu Yuan asked. Lu Yin looked at Lu Yuan. "Ancestor, help me delay them for a while. I'll beat them up in a bit." The beast understood and roared angrily. Hongyan Mavis glanced at Lu Yin. At this moment Lu Yin gave her the same feeling as the beast. Lu Yin released the unbounded progenitor's world and then immediately contracted it. His physical body did not seem to have changed, but he had already transformed the unbounded progenitor's world into an unbounded realm that covered his entire body. Since the Azure Sky Palace could be used, he would not need to use the unbounded progenitor's world to recover his strength in the future. The next moment, the starry sky in his heart was released, causing Garangilo's eyelids to twitch. Just how much power did this guy have? Where had he come from? Lu Yin had not cultivated the Azure Sky Palace on his own, and he would not have been able to. After all, the primogenitor had been constantly carving while cultivating the Azure Sky Palace, and he did not have that much time. However, the starry sky in his heart made up for this gap. What was the difference between the stars and the carvings? When the starry sky spread out from his heart, the starry sky trembled and shocked Lu Yuan and the others. They saw an unbelievable scene. What should have been the stars were now streaks of light in all directions. It was as if this part of the universe had been enveloped in a single space. That space was the Azure Sky Palace and the stars were the carvings. They felt a sense of familiarity. This was the feeling of the Azure Sky Palace. Lu Yuan was delighted. Little Seven, you've cultivated the Azure Sky Palace? Lu Yin's lips curled up. Ancestor, I told you that the opportunity to cultivate the Azure Sky Palace is to break through the unbounded progenitor's world. Right, let them come. I also want to test how strong I am now. Hongyan Mavis was the first to step aside. He wanted to see just how strong Lu Yin was. Lu Yin had only just broken through to the progenitor realm, but he could fight the protectors of the four cardinal directions. This was equivalent to fighting a primordial realm expert. The 3 realms and 6 Daoists could fight a primordial realm expert, but they were all experts of the sequence laws. In other words, Lu Yin stood on the same level as them. Which one of the 3 realms and 6 Daoists did not have extraordinary talent? Which one of them did not shock the past and present? Yet a junior like Lu Yin had caught up to them. Although they were very happy, they also felt somewhat sullen. Chapter 32-39. Hongyan Mavis was still fine, as Lu Yin had never caught up to her power unless he broke through to the sequence laws. At that time they would be on the same level, and it would not be embarrassing for her to be surpassed in power. However, things were different now. Lu Yin had broken through to the unbounded ancestor's world, and his power had transformed. She wanted to know if Lu Yin's power had caught up to hers. However, Lu Yuan did not let Su Wang off. It was better to play it safe and let Shao Qi fight it out with the beast. Lu Yin did not mind, and he looked at the beast with a provocative expression. Come, monkey. The beast was enraged as it hated being called a monkey. Hongyan Mavis had always used this title to provoke it into competing in strife. Now it was Lu Yin's turn. The beast leapt towards Lu Yin, grabbing him with both hands and smashing him in the head. Lu Yin looked up. He had already fused with the unbounded ancestor's world, and to a certain extent he was very similar to Su Wang. The beast's power was also similar. As he watched the beast crash down, Lu Yin bent his leg and rushed forward. The moment he closed in on the beast, he flipped over and kicked out. Bang! The void shattered and darkness swept across the sky. It was as if the deep starry sky had been dyed with ink. The enormous void realm was instantly shattered. Everyone watched as the beast's body flew backwards and smashed into Su Wang. Su Wang didn't have time to run, and the strength beast smashed into him, sending him flying as well. Lu Yin stood tall in the sky, his eyes blazing. This was his power. Yes, this was his power. In the current universe, no one could compare to him in terms of power. No one, not a single one. Lu Yuan and the rest were stunned. What? Hongyan Mavis was shocked. Lu Yin's power had completely surpassed hers. This was the power of a progenitor after his transformation. Jialan Jiluo gulped. He had to admit that this kid had surpassed both the past and present. Hongyan Mavis and De Huang were the strongest in the primordial space, but neither of them could compare to Lu Yin. Lu Yin's power alone was enough to kill most of the universe's powerhouses, and even the sequence law's powerhouses were no exception. How many people would be able to fight against him? Lu Yin exhaled. This feeling was too carefree. In the distance, Su Wang shook off the strength beast and glared angrily at Lu Yin. He then charged forward to ram into Lu Yin. Lu Yin smiled. Good timing. I've been injured by you so many times, I should thank you properly. Su Wang charged at Lu Yin and viciously slammed into him, but Lu Yin raised his right arm and blocked the attack with a single arm. Boom shockwaves spread out in all directions, causing Lu Yin's hair to flutter. Lu Yin was knocked back dozens of steps by Su Wang, but in the end he managed to block the attack with a single arm, suppressing Su Wang in place. The human-like eyes of Su Wang were filled with disbelief. Be careful, Lu Yuan reminded. The strength beast stepped on Su Wang and punched Lu Yin from above. It was unwilling to give up as it could not possibly lose in a contest of strength. Lu Yin looked up and propped up Su Wang with one hand while raising his left arm to grab at the power beast. The strength beast's fist smashed into Lu Yin's palm. Although there was a huge difference between their sizes, Lu Yin was still able to use his small palm to block the strength beast's fist. His body was only slightly pressed down. Su Wang roared and exerted more force. The power beast's eyes were ferocious as it punched out with its other fist. Lu Yin simultaneously released his arms and kicked at Su Wang before flipping over and kicking at the power beast. Two explosions rang out as shockwaves spread out and tore through the void. The two behemoths were sent flying back by Lu Yin's two kicks. Lu Yin steadied himself and then took a step forward to charge at Su Wang. He raised his fist. "You're asking for a beating." He punched Su Wang's head, but the beast clenched its fists and smashed down again. Lu Yin turned around and punched out from below. There was a loud boom as the clash of strength was simple and unadorned, but each step was filled with danger. These were the three strongest beings in the universe, and outsiders could not interfere in their battle. Hongyan Mavis might be able to join in, but she would not be able to last until the end. If Lu Yuan went up, then he might even be beaten to a pulp. Lu Yin had single-handedly taken on two behemoths. Zhelanjila's blood boiled as he watched and his eyes lit up. Lu Yuan laughed heartily. After stepping into the progenitor realm, Lu Yin had transformed. In the past he had relied on various methods to challenge the seven sky gods, but he had always felt that something was missing. However, ever since he had broken through to the ancestral world and the mortal world, he had not been lacking. Now his strength had reached such a level that even a single punch from him would not feel good. This was the limit, and the universe had been thinking of ways to prevent humans from reaching it. Lu Yin had finally crossed it. Hongyan Mavis was shocked. "I've thought of many methods, but I've never been able to cross it. Now that I see Little Seven's transformation, I understand. It's not that I can't cross it, but that I'm limited by my species. Little Seven's aura is similar to the power beasts, and he's borrowing the essence of their strength. As for me, I've only been thinking about the Mavis God Tree and my own transformation." Lu Yuan looked at Hongyan Mavis in a daze. She did not understand. "What's wrong?" Lu Yuan subconsciously asked. "Why haven't you thought about learning the essence of the power beast strength?" Hongyan Mavis shook her head. "I just haven't thought about it. I can clearly see the essence of its strength, but I value my own strength more." Lu Yuan retracted his gaze with a complicated expression. "Maybe I know why De Huang is drifting further and further away from us." Hongyan Mavis was stunned, but she understood as well. Sapphire Gilot sighed as she understood as well. It was difficult to change the gap between species. They had left their apprenticeship and made a name for themselves in the 3 realms and 6 Daos. Under the resplendent background of the above heaven, they had unconsciously developed a sense of rejection towards the astral beasts. De Huang was an astral beast and Sapphire Gilot could feel it. Thus, after leaving their apprenticeship, they had gradually drifted apart. Back in that era, would humans really have followed their ancestors' wishes and not enslaved the astral beasts? That was impossible. That extremely brilliant human glory covered up the endless darkness and also created the endless darkness. Big Yellow could see the darkness clearly, but they couldn't. In the era that Lu Yin was born in, humans had no ability to enslave astral beasts. He was fundamentally different from the humans of the above heaven era. Even if De Huang had intentionally caused the destruction of the 4th mainland, it was not wrong. To the astral beasts, humans and the everlasting race were all the same. In fact, the everlasting race was even better, as corpse kings would not enslave astral beasts. No wonder, no wonder. In the distance, Lu Yin punched the beast's head, knocking it to the ground. He then kicked Su Wang's head, causing it to become dizzy. The two behemoths looked at each other, somewhat doubting their beastly existence. Lu Yin looked at the two behemoths in front of him and said in high spirits, "Again." The beast glared at Lu Yin angrily. Su Wang's tail was raised high and he let out a howl. He charged forward and slammed into the ground. Lu Yin kicked out again and Su Wang's attack was stopped. Lu Yin was also forced back a few steps and the beast came charging at him again. He punched out and with a bang the beast was sent flying back. Su Wang swung its body, its tail smashing towards Lu Yin. In the past, this tail had been enough to severely injure Lu Yin. Now Lu Yin kicked out again and even though he was forced back, he managed to block the attack. He then turned around and kicked Su Wang's side, forcing it back. Lu Yin's strength surpassed both Su Wang and the beast, and he could suppress one of them with a single hand. However, it would take some effort to suppress both of them together. Still, it was only a matter of time. These two behemoths were quite durable, and Lu Yin's breakthrough to the unbounded ancestors' world had greatly increased his endurance. His strength had also transformed his body, and he was now different from when he had fought in the second domain of disaster. They continued to fight and compete in strength. Time continued to pass. Su Wang and the beast showed no signs of giving up, and they continued to fight to the death with Lu Yin. Lu Yin did not plan to end things so easily either. If they wanted to be beaten, then he would beat them until they submitted. He did not believe that he could not suppress these two beasts. Lu Yuan and the others were not in a hurry and they simply watched. They knew what Lu Yin was thinking. He wanted to subdue these two astral beasts. Subdue? I've thought about it before. If it's impossible with other powers, then it might be possible with pure strength, Hongyan Mavis said. Sapphire Zhulao sighed. We should let De Huang see it too. Lu Yuan was helpless. Even if we want to use other powers, we can't. Only one of Shao Qi's 4 locks formation has been dispelled. He should be able to dispel it himself. With his strength he should be able to do so, Hongyan Mavis said. The 4 locks formation could only be dispelled by one's own strength, not an outsider's. It all depended on when Lu Yin would dispel it. A loud sound rang out as the strength beast smashed into Su Wang again, sending him flying with the impact. Lu Yin panted heavily as he chased after it. He refused to believe that there were no beasts that could not be subdued, and that there were only people without courage. Su Wang pushed the beast aside and opened its mouth to bite Lu Yin. At that moment Lu Yin's time poison was completely gone, and he could feel his strength being devoured. It was a strange feeling as if he was moving at an accelerated speed. The exhaustion experienced by jumping 100 times and jumping 10 times in a row was completely different. At this moment Su Wang was making Lu Yin feel the exhaustion of jumping 100 times in a row after just 10 times. This was the loss of strength, and it also gave Su Wang the confidence to resist. It felt that as long as it had enough time, it would definitely be able to exhaust Lu Yin to death. The beast also sensed Su Wang's intentions, and under the stunned gazes of Lu Yuan and the rest, it gave Su Wang a thumbs up. Lu Yin was stunned. Was this a compliment? This strength beast was too human-like. Su Wang's eyes spun, unable to comprehend the beast's hand gesture. Lu Yin's expression suddenly changed and he gave the beast a thumbs up. This wasn't a universal hand gesture but rather one from Earth. Although he couldn't rule out the possibility that other universes had developed this hand gesture, could it really be so coincidental? Lu Yin stared at the beast. Could this guy be related to Earth? How was that possible? The beast's parallel universe had never interacted with the Genesis space before. Based on what Hongyan Mavis had said back in the Above Heaven sect, she had looked for the beast to compete in strength. First, it wasn't easy to find one, and second, it was proof that the beast had existed for a very long time. Earth definitely hadn't developed this hand gesture for that long, at most a few hundred years. If the beast's hand gesture really was related to Earth, then the only place that was related to it was White Cloud City. Chapter 3240. There was a simple way to prove whether or not this beast was related to Earth. Lu Yin gave the beast a thumbs up. The beast was stunned and had a strange expression. What did this human mean? Was he praising it? Lu Yin's eyes narrowed as he flipped his hand and gestured to the Force beast. The beast's mouth gaped open before its eyes turned red. It was completely enraged and let out a furious roar. This human was insulting it. Lu Yin sighed. This beast was definitely related to Earth. The beast was irritable and charged at Lu Yin, swinging its fists to shatter space and cause the entire universe to tremble. Although Lu Yin's strength had been depleted, this did not affect the beast's battle with Su Wang. Even now he was unaffected. Jumping 10 times in a row was equivalent to jumping 100 times in a row, but Lu Yin could jump 1,000 or even 10,000 times in a row. Bang! Bang! There were 2 consecutive collisions and the shockwaves tore through the void like ripples on the surface of a lake, shattering layer by layer. Lu Yin's 2 fists collided with the beast's, forcing it back. At the same time he stepped forward and appeared in front of the beast. He raised his arm high. Let's see how well you can take a beating. The beast was sent flying and its head felt like it was about to explode. Behind them, Su Wang no longer charged at Lu Yin, as it planned to consume his strength to waste time. However, how could Lu Yin give it that time? He immediately appeared on its back and punched the beast, causing it to wail in pain. Its body curled up and writhed wildly from the impact. Lu Yin did not let it go and continued punching it. Su Wang frantically tried to escape, but it could not shake off Lu Yin. It crashed into Lu Yuan and the others along the way, but they avoided it. It then crashed into the beast, but this time the beast had learned its lesson and hurriedly fled. Punch after punch, Su Wang was forcefully beaten to the point of vomiting stomach acid. Its wails grew weaker and weaker, and a layer of skin was torn off from its originally smooth back. The point of power that had been condensed by a special force was scattered, and Su Wang's strength continued to weaken. The beast saw that Su Wang was about to collapse, so it casually tore through the void to escape. Lu Yin looked up. "You want to escape?" Before he could do anything, the general appointment platform slammed into the beast from the side, forcing it back. The beast glared at Lu Yuan viciously. Lu Yuan looked up, his primordial realm aura erupting as he sneered, "Little beast, you still want to spar with me?" The strength beast was afraid. This human had power that made it afraid, so it couldn't fight him head-on. It rushed into the distance, only to find that it was shrouded by a shadow. It turned around and saw Su Wang's huge body smashing towards it. The strength beast couldn't dodge in time and was hit by Su Wang. It spat out a mouthful of blood. Lu Yin snorted and chased after them. He had already made up his mind to subdue these two fellows. They would either follow him or die. These were their only two choices. Their breathing grew heavier. The beast clutched its arm, which was broken. Su Wang could not move at all as it had been severely injured. Lu Yin slowly approached them. Their gazes towards Lu Yin had changed from wariness to apprehension and now to fear. Their gazes constantly changed. The closer Lu Yin got, the more they retreated. They were clearly giants, but they gave off a pitiful feeling. In the distance, Lu Yuan suddenly thought of Xianxia and Zhu Meng. They were his master's pets. Right, he also thought of the shipfish. That fish was especially despicable. Now Lu Yin also had the caged WM. If he really subdued these two giants, he would basically be on the same level as his master. The caged WM seemed powerful, but it slipped away faster than anyone else. It was a perfect match for the shipfish. These two giants were definitely not any weaker than Xianxia and Zhu Meng. The more Lu Yuan looked at them, the more he felt that Lu Yin was similar to the primogenitor. Was reincarnation really a thing? Humans could always be reborn from the ashes. His master had once brought humanity to the peak. Now Xiaoqi could definitely do the same. Lu Yin faced the two giants and slowly raised his fist, again. Su Wang subconsciously retreated, howling in pain as his tail drooped down. The beast took half a step back and stared at Lu Yin with unwillingness and helplessness. He raised a hand and gave Lu Yin a thumbs up. Lu Yin snorted, "Don't try that with me. Either follow me or be beaten to death. Choose one." The beast bared his teeth and subconsciously wanted to give Lu Yin a thumbs up, but he did not dare to do so under Lu Yin's fierce gaze. He scratched his head and rolled his eyes. He gave Lu Yin what he thought was a kind smile, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Because he was so big, his white teeth almost lit up the sky. Hongyan, Mavis and the others felt strange. Su Wang's eyes moved, and when he saw the beast's actions, he followed suit and slowly curved his mouth, revealing even bigger white teeth. The beast was speechless and wanted to kick him. Couldn't he be a little more creative? The deep starry sky was filled with desolation and loneliness. Here survival was the most important thing. But now Lu Yin had lost all his killing intent because of these two giants. As he looked at the two mouths full of white teeth, he felt like he couldn't bring himself to do it. The beast could sense that Lu Yin's killing intent had lessened, and his smile grew even more brilliant. He tapped the void with his thumb, causing ripples to form as he gave Lu Yin a thumbs up. Su Wang sensed it as well. It had no arms or legs, and under everyone's stunned gazes, its tail curled up. Half of its tail was bent, while the other half was raised like a thumb. It tapped the void lightly as it aimed at Lu Yin. Lu Yin rolled his eyes. The beast turned around and saw this scene with a look of amazement. He glanced at Su Wang. This guy wasn't stupid. Su Wang praised Lu Yin as he retreated, clearly trying to slip away. Su Wang followed suit, praising Lu Yin as he retreated. Unexpectedly, the beast stepped on Su Wang. Su Wang's body was too slippery and he fell to the ground. Su Wang was also in pain and roared at the beast. The beast hurriedly put a finger to his lips and shushed Su Wang, silencing him. The two giants slowly turned to look at Lu Yin. Lu Yin's lips curled up. Continue. He then raised his fist and punched the two beasts. The beast roared in indignation and swatted at Lu Yin with its remaining arm. Su Wang also went all out and charged forward. In the distance, Lu Yuan shook his head. These two giants wouldn't be able to escape. Hongyan Mavis was bitter. I've never seen the beast act like that. That's because you haven't pushed it to the limit, Sanlin Zhou said. Hongyan Mavis said, I've always competed with it in terms of strength. If I can't win, then I naturally can't push it to the limit. But if I use other powers, then it's not my match. If you can use other powers, then why bother? Sanlin Zhiluo retorted. Hongyan Mavis frowned and looked at Sanlin Zhou. You seem to be choking me, Floey. Lu Yuan interrupted. She's not choking you, she's choking everyone. Have you forgotten what she's like? The sixth mainland doesn't have a good relationship with the other mainlands. Hongyan Mavis thought about it and agreed. Sanlin Zhiluo didn't mind. The sounds of collisions and fighting could be heard from the distance. The beast and Su Wang hadn't been able to defeat Lu Yin at the start, and now they were even less of a match. They couldn't even escape, and as they fought, the two giants didn't seem to have any intention of resisting. This was especially true for the beast, who was lying in space and constantly giving Lu Yin a thumbs up. Lu Yin stood on its head. Can you talk? Copy me. The beast simply shook its head. Lu Yin was satisfied. It's better if you can't. If you can talk, then I wouldn't want to bring you along. The beast opened its mouth and sighed. Lu Yin turned to look at Su Wang, who was like a beached dead fish. It would occasionally flap its tail, but it couldn't move. As expected, the two behemoths were beaten into submission. Lu Yin pointed to his shoulder with one hand and his feet with the other. The beast struggled to sit up and its body shrank. Su Wang also shrank and rushed towards Lu Yin at a speed faster than the beast, naturally perching on his shoulder. Lu Yin looked at it. Its tail was perked up and it looked quite carefree. The beast gritted its teeth and rushed over, kicking it off Lu Yin's shoulder. Su Wang was enraged and charged at the beast. Lu Yin picked them up one by one, and now that they had shrunk their bodies, it was enough for him to pick them up. I'll beat you up if you make any more noise. The two beasts bared their white teeth and gave Lu Yin a thumbs up. Lu Yin sighed, thinking about the divine eagle's might and the ancestral Mang's domineering aura. He felt that these two fellows couldn't compare. Lu Yuan and the rest came over. Congratulations, little seven. You've gained 2 guardian beasts. Lu Yuan smiled. Sanlin Zhou sized up Su Wang and the beast curiously. These two weren't weak. Su Wang's ability to devour energy is troublesome. Lu Yin patted Su Wang. Don't tell me you can't take it. If you can't, I won't bring you along. Su Wang grinned, revealing his white teeth, and then shook its body, clearly indicating that it couldn't. The beast popped out from behind and knocked Su Wang back. It then gave Lu Yin a thumbs up and pointed at Su Wang as if trying to convey something. Su Wang was furious and wanted to beat the beast to death. Lu Yin's gaze was dangerous and filled with killing intent. You seem to have misunderstood me. I can't bring you along, so I can only kill you. Su Wang was stunned and then quickly retracted his ability to devour energy. In the past, no matter who discovered it, it would just sleep and ignore them. Wherever it went, it would devour energy and release it on its own. Even the ancient gods thought that it couldn't restrain this ability. But the beast was different. To a certain extent, the two were very similar. One was a creature released from the universe and should represent the strongest power, while the other was the strongest creature in this universe. The beast could sense that Su Wang could restrain his ability to devour energy. However, the price was that Su Wang's entire body swelled up, and he couldn't bear his white teeth anymore. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Chapter 3241. Hongyan Mavis moved closer and stared at the beast. Hey, you remember me, right? The beast glared fiercely at Hongyan Mavis, ready to bite her at any moment. Senior, are you sure this is the beast that competed in strength? Could it be the descendant of the previous beast? Lu Yin asked. Hongyan Mavis replied, No, the beast is not a race. Even if it has descendants, they might not be able to inherit its strength. Its strength is not cultivated but instinctive, just like Su Wang. She then looked at Lu Yin in amazement. Little seven, you managed to cultivate their innate strength. I'm impressed. Lu Yin replied, It can be done as long as you can treat the strength as a physical state. Senior wants to learn, I can teach you. Of course, thank you. Hongyan Mavis was grateful. Lu Yuan laughed. Little Seven, teach me a thing or two. Lu Yin smiled. Of course. Zhou was envious. Once you learn it, your strength will rise to another level. Please mark out the places where you used your full strength. I need to know where to use my 8-star innate gift. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat and he looked at Zhou. I forgot something. Senior Zhou, why does the Shaoyin Divine Sovereign have an 8-star innate gift? Lu Yuan and Hongyan Mavis both looked at Zhou. They had forgotten that the Shaoyin Divine Sovereign had displayed an 8-star innate gift, but he could not be from the Zhaolan bloodline. Zhou's gaze turned cold. It should be from the Eternals. What do you mean? The Eternals have the ability of the Zhaolan bloodline? Lu Yin did not understand. Zhou said, I only found out when I was in Tianfeng's body. The Eternals, who are also the only true gods, have an innate gift called bone grafting. Bone grafters? Lu Yin blurted out. Zhou's gaze turned cold. Bone grafters did appear in history, but it was short-lived. They do not care about the flesh, only the bones. With the bones, they can obtain the strength and innate gifts of the previous owner. That is why this race was wiped out. You know about them. Lu Yin's expression turned serious. What does the Eternals have to do with them? Zhou said. He was the one who created the bone plant people and left them in the beginning space. I was sealed in Tianfeng's body. Originally, Tianfeng wanted to kill me directly, but the Eternals appeared and used the methods of bone grafters to pull out my tendons and skin. I was subjected to the punishment of disfigurement, and part of my bones were extracted. Therefore, it is not strange for the Eternals to have the power of Indigo and 8-star talents. Hongyan Mavis grabbed Indigo Xiluo's arm. Zhou subconsciously withdrew his hand. So that's why you can't remove the bandage and restore your appearance? Hongyan Mavis' eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent. Lu Yuan's face was terrifyingly grim. Regardless of the internal conflicts within the 3 realms and 6 paths, the relationship between the two of them was real. It was a bond formed under the teachings of their ancestor. Now that Zhou was in such a miserable state, Lu Yuan and Hongyan Mavis were furious. They had the urge to destroy the Eternals and the Guardians of the 4 Directions immediately. Lu Yin's face darkened as well. Zhou's misfortune was no less than anyone else's. No wonder she said she was unable to recover. For a woman who loved beauty to suffer such a disaster, one could imagine the impact it would have on her. How do you want to take revenge, Hua? Lu Yuan asked in a low voice. Zhou calmly replied, It's been so long. Let's talk about it later. Be careful. The Eternals can give way to one person. Who is that? Divine Shaoyin, right? If one Divine Shaoyin can use an 8-star innate gift, then there can be more. This didn't happen in the previous battle, so the Eternals must have other motives. Lu Yin suddenly thought of the bone boats in Immortal City. He had discovered a phenomenon there. The Eternals did not care about the deaths of their experts. He had heard some conversations about how even if they died they would still appear later. He had not understood at the time, but now he had a guess. Perhaps Zhou's bones were on the bone boats. The Eternals had used bone grafting techniques to allow the Corpse Kings to obtain various kinds of strength through the bones of various powerhouses. That was why those powerhouses kept appearing. In other words, Immortal City was facing powerhouses who had already died. As long as the Eternals continued to collect the bones of powerhouses, they would be able to increase the strength of the bone boats. Zhou's bones might not only be on Divine Shaoyin's body, but they might also be on the bone boats. The bone boats were the Eternals' greatest weapon against Immortal City, and now Lu Yin had a clear view of this weapon. Zhou had been sealed within Tianfeng's body, so he had learned many things, but the price he had to pay for this was extremely heavy. A thumb was raised in front of Lu Yin's eyes, aimed at Zhou. It was the strength beast and it was praising Zhou. Lu Yin slapped the beast's head. Go back. The strength beast covered its head and shrank back. Go. It's time to leave, Lu Yuan said. Not long after, Lu Yin returned to the Above Heaven sect. As soon as they arrived, the strength beast and Su Wang looked at the caged drake and ancestral tortoise outside the sect. They were very sensitive to the auras of their own kind, even though the two beasts were far from being able to defeat these two. The caged drake felt his scalp go numb, and he subconsciously bared his fangs and claws in an attempt to intimidate the unknown enemy. The ancestral tortoise was even more straightforward and shrank its head back. Out of sight, out of mind. The strength beast was disdainful. Su Wang was now coiled around Lu Yin's waist. In any case, it did not stay under Lu Yin's feet. Many people were curious about Su Wang and the strength beast, and Lu Yin announced to the public that the Heavens sect now had 2 more guardian beasts, which excited many people. The stronger the Heavens sect was, the more confident the humans would be. 10 days later, Lu Yin began to roll his die. He tapped it and watched it slowly spin before finally stopping at 3 pips. Lu Yin felt helpless as there was nothing he could do without money. He continued to roll the die, and the second time he rolled it was 5 pips. He slapped Su Wang and an image of an air current appeared on the die. Su Wang's ability to devour energy was a sequence principle, and it could also be considered an innate gift that could be borrowed. Su Wang was at a loss, and when Lu Yin slapped it, it subconsciously smiled, revealing a row of white teeth. Its body had shriveled up and it had unconsciously devoured energy, causing a commotion in the Heavens sect. Lu Yin glared at it and it hurriedly retracted its ability to devour energy, causing it to swell up again. The strength beast blinked and smiled at Lu Yin as well. Both of them praised the die, afraid that they would be beaten up. Lu Yin was speechless as these two were not much smarter than the caged drake. They were both idiots. He continued. The third time he rolled it was 4 pips and Lu Yin entered the time-stop space. The strength beast fell down and Lu Yin was gone. Within the time-stop space, Lu Yin looked at his hands and feet. It was time to remove the 4 locks array. He had used Su Wang's strength to break through his own seal, and now that he had broken through, he wanted to use his own strength to break through the other 3 seals. The mortal world, time, and innate gifts were not simple, but with Lu Yin's current strength he did not know how much power he could withstand. Furthermore, there was another type of power, the Sky Palace. The unbounded progenitor's world was constantly attached to Lu Yin's body in the form of an unbounded realm, but it was still not enough. Lines of power appeared around Lu Yin and began to madly collide. Although Lu Yin's body had formed an unbounded realm with a strange force, his current unbounded realm strength might be able to break through the seal of time and innate gifts, but it might not be able to break through the seal of the mortal ancestor's world. It was still an ancestral world, and in terms of threat to powerhouses, it was definitely not inferior to physical strength. Lu Yin had relied on the mortal ancestor's world to dominate the second battlefield of tragedy. The lines of power collided and produced new lines of power that penetrated Lu Yin's body. As long as he was in the unbounded ancestor's world, he could enter the unbounded realm at any time. Not long after, he released the starry sky in his heart, and the Sky Palace appeared. Auroras fell from all directions and stars twinkled like sculptures. The lines of power constantly collided within the Sky Palace, but they did not overflow and could be used limitlessly. Lu Yin punched at the lock on his left arm. Crack! The lock shattered, but it was formed from time and could not withstand Lu Yin's current strength. Next, Lu Yin used his strength to shatter the lock on his right foot, which represented his innate gift. Finally, it was the lock on his left foot. Lu Yin punched out, but the lock did not budge. The mortal ancestor's world was different. This was within Lu Yin's expectations, and he continued to absorb the lines of power. His body dried up as he frantically condensed power. No matter what kind of creature it was, there was a limit to the amount of power that could be contained within their body. The so-called limit turned into limitless was just a state. More importantly, it depended on whether or not the creature's body could withstand limitless power. The unbounded realm allowed Lu Yin to withstand power that surpassed that of Su Wang and Li Shou, but there was also a limit. If he truly had limitless power, then he would have been able to crush Su Wang and Li Shou with a single finger. That kind of power would not be recognized by the universe. The universe had no limits. That was what the progenitor had said. Within the Sky Palace, Lu Yin punched at the lock on his left foot. His strength would not decline, and it would only circulate endlessly within the Sky Palace. If one punch was not enough, he would punch twice, and if 2 still did not work, he would punch 200 times. Finally, there was a soft sound as the last lock shattered. Lu Yin stood in place, exhausted and panting heavily. He had finally dispelled the 4 locks formation. At this point, Lu Yin's strength had finally recovered to its peak. There was a limit to one's strength. and the Sky Palace's existence not only ensured that Lu Yin's strength was limitless, but it also ensured that Lu Yin's other abilities were limitless. This was the progenitor's ultimate technique, and after breaking through the unbounded ancestor's world, he had finally combined the Sky Palace with the starry sky in his heart and successfully released it. The current Lu Yin was different from when he had fought in the Second Calamity Realm. In the current universe, there were very few who could defeat him in a one-on-one fight. Even the 3 realms and 6 Daoists would not be able to defeat him. This was Lu Yin's confidence. After staying in the time-stop space for a year, he had gotten used to his current fighting style. The scene in front of him changed, and Lu Yin returned to the above heavens sect's back mountain. Only a second had passed in the outside world, and Li Shou had just fallen off his shoulder when Lu Yin appeared and knocked him away. Li Shou looked at Lu Yin blankly, not understanding what had just happened. Lu Yin squatted down and stared at Li Shou. Li Shou blinked and then gave him a thumbs up. At the same time he grinned as he felt that this action would prevent him from getting beaten up. Chapter 3242. Who did you learn this hand gesture from? Lu Yin asked. Li Shou didn't understand and continued to like it. Lu Yin gave him a thumbs up. Who did you learn this hand gesture from? Li Shou looked at Lu Yin's thumb and fell into deep thought. Have you heard of White Cloud City? Lu Yin asked. Li Shou shook his head. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. Have you seen a rabbit that likes to step on people's heads? Li Shou's eyes lit up and he continued to like it. Lu Yin understood. It really was that rabbit. Where is that rabbit? Li Shou shook his head and then made many gestures to explain. It took a while for Lu Yin to understand why the rabbit had suddenly appeared and wanted to step on Li Shou. Who was Li Shou? Li Shou was an absolute being that surpassed Hongyan Mavis in terms of strength. Even an expert from the Eternal Race's 7 realms would not be able to handle it, so how could a rabbit step on it? The rabbit was caught and beaten up, but Li Shou didn't kill it and instead teased it. He had learned this hand gesture from the rabbit. When the rabbit escaped, Li Shou didn't chase after it. If he couldn't catch it, the rabbit would just travel through parallel universes, and Li Shou wouldn't be able to find it. Lu Yin had thought that Li Shou was related to Earth, so this answer wasn't unexpected. Speaking of which, that rabbit was really something. It ran away frantically, afraid of being caught by White Cloud City. After asking this question, Lu Yin turned to stare at Su Wang. Su Wang floated in the air like a dead fish, slapping its tail from time to time. It panicked when it saw Lu Yin suddenly staring at it, but then it smiled and tried not to show its white teeth. It raised its tail and gave Lu Yin a thumbs up. Lu Yin pursed his lips and continued to stare at it without saying a word. Li Shou blinked and looked around curiously as if taking pleasure in Lu Yin's misfortune. It had just met Su Wang and they had even fought, so they could be considered fellow sufferers. Su Wang was getting more and more flustered, and its tail was raised high as it gave Lu Yin a thumbs up. Lu Yin frowned. How did you know? He was thinking about a problem. When Tianfa had first met Su Wang, it had said that Su Wang didn't belong to this universe. How did Tianfa know? The protectors of the 4 cardinal regions must have a way of seeing the characteristics of creatures that didn't belong to this universe, or even find them. Otherwise, how could it chase after Elder Shangu? How did Tianxi find the lost clan's hiding place? Lu Yin really wanted to find out the reason. He hoped that by seeing the characteristics that did not belong to this universe, he would be able to find the heavenly blessing and heavenly grace and eradicate these 2 disasters. But after looking at it for a few days, he still couldn't find anything. Su Wang, on the other hand, had been praising him with his tail for several days. He was exhausted. It had always felt that the only reason it hadn't been beaten up was because it had been constantly praising Lu Yin's posts. Otherwise, it would have been beaten up long ago. Thinking of this, it looked at the strength beast gratefully. This action was taught by the strength beast. Lu Yin went to look for Patriarch Lu Yuan, Jialan Zhilua, Wu Tian and many others, but he couldn't find anything that matched that trait. He even conversed with the only true God. You want to use this method to find the guardian envoys? Find them and eliminate them. Isn't that what you Eternals want as well? The humans and the guardians of the 4 directions are absolutely irreconcilable, and a victor has to be determined. Unfortunately, I don't know either. I have no idea where they are or what their characteristics are. You, on the other hand, have changed your aura. Did you break through to the ancestral realm in your inner world? Lu Yin's change couldn't be hidden from the only true God, and he had no intention of hiding it. It wasn't just the only true god. The archer god and the others could see it as well. Lu Yin now had a soul-stirring aura that pressured them. The god of forgotten ruins admitted that she wasn't Lu Yin's match in a one-on-one fight. Lu Yin left and went to the city where the lost clan had been massacred. Xianxia had massacred the city to infuriate Lu Yin and start a war. The results were just as he had expected, and they had indeed started a war. However, he hadn't been able to gain the upper hand. In the current universe, the Above Heaven sect still had the upper hand. Walking through the city, one could still smell the stench of blood. The lost clan could now openly return to their space-time. This city had been abandoned, but there was still someone here. It was none other than Su Wuji. The lost clan had their own unique burial method for the dead. The burial method looked similar to a trap, and it was considered a tomb for the lost clan. A card was carved outside each tomb, and the card was used by the deceased when they were alive. There was a card carved in front of Danfengyi's tomb. Su Wuji hugged a jar of wine and leaned against the tomb, muttering something to himself. There was a box at his feet that Danfengyi had asked Lu Yin to bring to him. Back then, Lu Yin had been very curious about what was in the box, but it was a secret between Su Wuji and Danfengyi. Lu Yin walked behind Su Wuji and looked at Danfengyi's tomb. The carved card was equivalent to the Lost Clan's inscriptions. Every Lost Clan member's most important item was the card. Lu Yin looked at the card for a long time before bowing slowly to express his respect for Danfengyi and the dead Lost Clan members. Even though it had nothing to do with him, he had failed to protect the Lost Clan members. Since he had joined the Above Heaven sect, he had the responsibility to protect them, but he had failed. I'm sorry. Lu Yin's voice was heavy as it echoed in the empty city. Su Wuji put down the jar and pushed his sunglasses up. He wanted to stand up, but he had drunk too much and could not. He fell to the ground. Lu Yin looked at him. He still wanted to stand up, but after a few tries he failed. I'm sorry, Master Lu. I can't stand up. Su Wuji laughed bitterly. Lu Yin looked at him. I'm sorry. Su Wuji waved his hand. It's normal for cultivators to die. What's there to be sorry about? You've done well, really well. If it had been anyone else, they would have given up on the Lost Clan long ago. Master Lu, you don't owe anyone anything. Lu Yin slowly sat down on the ground in front of Su Wuji. Is it uncomfortable? Su Wuji laughed and shook his head. Not at all. We'll meet again one day. Your sunglasses fell off, Lu Yin said. Su Wuji rubbed his eyes and touched his sunglasses, but they did not fall off. He smiled bitterly again and took a big gulp from the jar. Lu Yin looked around. I'll definitely take revenge. Definitely. Su Wuji threw the jar away, causing it to shatter on the ground. He took off his sunglasses and stared at Lu Yin with a serious expression. It's called taking revenge if you're confident, but it's called suicide if you're not. I did something suicidal before. He was referring to charging at Tianxi. Danjing had also attacked at the same time, but the two had not been able to hurt Tianxi at all. Tianxi had grabbed both of them and crushed them. If not for Lu Yin's flowing light reversal, Xianxia would have died as well. Master Lu, you shouldn't have saved me. Su Wuji took out another jar of wine from his cosmic ring and downed it. Lu Yin said, I'm already upset that I couldn't save these people. Su Wuji sighed. You shouldn't have saved me, but I still have to thank you. Lu Yin did not reply and silently looked at Danfengyi's grave. After a while, Lu Yin said, Tell me about you guys. Su Wuji fell to the ground. What's there to say? What about the box? What's inside? I brought it to you, Lu Yin said. Su Wuji stared blankly at the sky. I have a card from the Lost Clan. It's a 7-star ancient card, Nightshade. I got it from the upper 3 sections. I'm the one who showed off my muscles in the upper 3 sections, let loose, and then drew out the card. Lu Yin was not surprised. When Su Wuji had told him about the upper 3 sections of the Lost Clan, he had listed several ways to get the card, including singing, writing poems, telling one's wishes, and showing off one's muscles. At that time he had felt that the one who showed off his muscles was Su Wuji. Su Wuji slowly told the whole process of him and Danfengyi for meeting each other. The process was not long. Danfengyi was still called Fengyi at that time, and she was from the Lost Clan. The Lost Clan was xenophobic, and it was impossible for her to have much contact with Su Wuji. What ignited their love was that time in the upper 3 sections. Su Wuji did not show off his muscles to attract the card, but to attract Danfengyi. It was strange that Dan Fangyi especially liked muscular men. Su Wuji was ridiculed by countless people from the Void God universe and the Lost Clan universe, but he only attracted Dan Fangyi. From then on they fell in love. But this relationship was not allowed by the Lost Clan, so they could only communicate in secret. On the surface they pretended to be intimate. Su Wuji directly called her Xiao Fang, but in reality, it was to relax the Lost Clan's vigilance. Sometimes the more intimate they appeared, the less suspicious they would be. Also, when they exchanged tokens, it was full of traps. In any case, Su Wuji was an extremely strong powerhouse and the Lost Clan had to give them face. They would not completely stop them from communicating, but at least they could exchange tokens. Su Wuji had asked Lu Yin to give Dan Fangyi a sculpture of a man's flashing muscles, as well as a token of their love. Dan Fangyi had asked Lu Yin to give Su Wuji a trap, and if it was opened, something would happen. This was to prevent the Lost Clan from checking on them, and within the trap was Dan Fangyi's token. They expressed their feelings by exchanging tokens. Lu Yin couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, "This is pure spiritual love." Su Wuji rolled his eyes and smashed the wine jar in his hand in the distance, making a loud noise. "Damn it, who wants to do this? Isn't it because of the Lost Clan?" Fortunately, some time ago the Lost Clan was connected to the origin space by you, so they were not so xenophobic. Xiao Fang and I could be together and we were recognized by the Lost Clan. The Lost Clan went into hiding in batches. I was one of the few people who knew about this city. I came here several times and each time I met with Xiao Fang it was not too long. But I did not expect that the last time I came it was a farewell. It was not even a farewell. Listening to Su Wuji's words, Lu Yin's eyes dimmed. The love that had come to fruition was forcibly broken up. Of course he knew the pain. What was the difference between Ming Yan's current situation and death? But he was happier than Su Wuji. At least Ming Yan was not dead, but Dan Fangyi was really dead. Tianxi, this debt will be paid. Chapter 3243. The box at Su Wuji's feet had been kicked over when he fell to the ground, and its contents spilled out. One was a sculpture of shiny muscles that looked rather comical. The other looked like sand that was transparent and small, almost impossible to see clearly. "What's that?" Lu Yin asked curiously. Su Wuji replied, "It's a token of love between me and Xiao Fang." Lu Yin looked at him. "Sand?" Su Wuji took out another jar of wine and drank. "It looks like it. We call it illusory sand. As long as you get close to it and think of it, then think of other things, it will unconsciously become what you think of. Xiao Fang and I found it by accident and used it as a token of love." Lu Yin was surprised. There was such a thing. He approached the sand and found that each grain was exactly the same size. As he thought of the sand, he also thought of a sword. In front of him, the sand moved and formed the shape of a sword. There were too many strange things in the universe, and the first thing that came to Lu Yin's mind was narrowness. That thing seemed to have a mind of its own. If you hit it, it would retaliate in the same way. It was as mysterious as the illusory sand in front of him. Why are there so few? Su Wuji looked at the illusory sand sword and was puzzled. The sword scattered and the illusory sand fell to the ground. Su Wuji stared blankly, his eyes filled with hatred. "It's him." Lu Yin did not understand. Limitless Void clenched his fists. His eyes were red. The illusory gravel is a bit absorbent. When that person killed Little Fong took out the illusory gravel. That person killed Little Fong and got the gravel on his body. That's why there are less gravel here. Bang. He punched the ground like a crazed beast, his murderous intent causing the sky to darken. He was also filled with self-blame. He was no match for Tianxi. Lu Yin thought of something. "You're saying that Tianxi might have gotten the sand on him?" Su Wuji did not answer, sinking into his own hatred and self-blame. Lu Yin pressed a hand on his shoulder, his expression solemn. "Tell me, did Tianxi get the sand on him?" Su Wuji looked at Lu Yin, his eyes flashing. "So what if he did? Can you find him?" Lu Yin smiled coldly. "If you're sure, I should be able to find him." These grains of sand were too small to be seen clearly. Like dust, they might stick to Tianxi's body. Su Wuji's eyes widened and he grabbed Lu Yin's clothes. "Master Lu, can you really find him? Take me with you, I want to avenge Xiao Fang." Lu Yin exerted some strength in his palm and forced Su Wuji to the ground. Limitless Void was unable to resist Lu Yin's strength, and his entire body was pressed to the ground, unable to move. So what if you find him? Zhuji, calm down. What you need to do now is to help me find him. I will take revenge. Little Fong is not only your lover, she is also a member of the Above Heaven sect. There are also so many people who have died. In the ancient era there was also Jiaolonjilo. I will settle the grudges of the ancestors one by one. Su Wuji was sprawled on the ground, gasping for breath. He clenched his fists and tried to get up, but he couldn't move under Lu Yin's strength. With a loud roar, Su Wuji's emotions exploded as he lay on the ground weakly. Ever since Dan Fengyi's death he had been like a living corpse. All he knew was to drink and mutter to himself, ignoring everyone else. Now there was finally something he could do and his grief completely erupted. Lu Yin released his grip, sighed and waited quietly for Su Wuji. After a while Su Wuji calmed down and slowly stood up. He took out his sunglasses and put them on. His voice was a little hoarse, but it was clearly different from the deathly silence from before. There are a total of 278,952 grains of illusory sand. We've searched through space and time and this is all we've found. If that guy really is infected by the illusory sand, then we can subtract the remaining amount from these grains to determine the amount on his body. He then squatted down and stared at the remaining grains of illusory sand. There are 23,642 grains, which means that 75,310 grains are missing. However, that doesn't mean that he just happened to have that many grains on him. Perhaps he lost some during the battle, or perhaps he lost some when he returned to where he lived. Let's first confirm if there are any more on this battlefield. Lu Yin swept through the city with his domain and found some. Dan Fengyi had not been the last to die in Tianxi's massacre, but rather the first. She was the only powerhouse in the city, and she had been the first to die at Tianxi's hands. After searching through the entire city, they found 21,005 grains, but 54,305 were still missing. Lu Yin and Su Wuji went to the second zone of calamity, and under the confused gazes of Wu Tian and the others, they searched through the area where Tianxi had fought. In the end they found 32,102 grains. The results were obvious. Tianxi had most likely taken 22,203 grains with him. Of course this was all just a guess. Tianxi was a primordial realm powerhouse, so the possibility of something like this on him was extremely low. However, this was their only chance to find Tianxi and Lu Yin did not want to give up. Are you sure that this sand is naturally produced by the universe and not man-made? Lu Yin asked again. The compass could only search for objects that were naturally produced in the universe. Su Wuji was very certain. Lu Yin nodded. Wait for my news. If it's possible, I'll definitely bring Tianxi's head back. With that, he left the second zone of calamity and returned to the Above Heaven sect. Su Wuji returned to the city as well. Lu Yin returned to the back mountains of the Above Heaven sect and thought about the illusory grains of sand. He took out his compass. The reason why he could be certain was because the grains of sand were all the same shape. This was a very mystical thing, as it was common knowledge that there were no identical grains of sand. Perhaps this was the reason why the grains of sand were so mystical. As long as he knew the exact number of grains of sand, he could think about the exact number of grains of sand in his mind, and it was very likely that he would be able to find them. Of course, the missing grains of sand might not necessarily be the same as the ones that Tianxi had taken away. They might be constantly lost along the way, so Lu Yin needed to reduce the number of grains one by one to try. First, he searched for 2,203 grains of sand. He thought about 2,203 grains of sand and used the compass to tear through the void, but nothing happened. Next, he searched for 2,202 grains of sand and used the compass to tear through the void, but nothing happened. Next, he searched for 2,201 grains of sand, 2,200 grains of sand, 2,199 grains of sand, 2,198 grains of sand, 2,197 grains of sand. Lu Yin continuously reduced the number of grains of sand and used the compass to tear through the void. Time slowly passed. He had to try any method that could possibly lead him to Tianxi. Otherwise, how would the Above Heaven sect find the four guardians? Compared to the guardians' understanding of the universe, the Above Heaven sect's knowledge was too shallow. More than 10 days passed, and on this day the compass suddenly tore through the void. Lu Yin's eyes widened. He had an idea. He was excited. There were 16,842 grains of sand. He could find the whereabouts of these 14,842 grains of sand, and it was very likely that they would lead him to Tianxi's location. Lu Yin was not in a hurry to go. He put away the compass and headed to White Cloud City. During the Second Battle of Calamity Region, the Lightning Lord was undoubtedly the one who understood Tianxi the most among the experts who had fought him. Although Jialan Jiluo knew about Tianxi's abilities, she had never fought him before. She had only learned about him after being sealed by Tianfeng. Only the Lightning Lord had fought Tianxi for the longest time. He was the most suitable person to fight Tianxi again. He then went to White Cloud City where he was familiar with the place and immediately found Jiang Feng. Jiang Feng was currently chatting with his wife in the garden. There were snacks on the table and they looked very relaxed. "Little Seven, why are you here?" Jiang Feng was pleasantly surprised. "Come try your aunt's cooking. She made all these snacks." Lu Yin, Jiang Chen and Jiang Qinyue were of the same generation, so he was naturally a junior in front of Jiang Feng. Since White Cloud City had not joined the Above Heaven sect, it was normal for Jiang Feng to call him Little Seven. The first time they met, Jiang Feng had called him Lu Yin, but this time they were much closer. Up until now, there were only a few people who could call Lu Yin Little Seven. Lu Yin smiled. "Of course, Aunt's cooking is excellent. Let me try." He took a bite and was full of praises. Lu Pianran smiled faintly. "Who would say that it's not good? Alright, you guys continue chatting. I'll cook for you. Little Seven, what do you want to eat?" Lu Yin took a bite of the snack and smiled apologetically. "Aunt, next time. I want to eat your tomato scrambled eggs next time." Lu Pianran smiled. "Alright, next time then." She then looked at Jiang Feng. Jiang Feng nodded at her and Lu Pianran left. "What's the matter?" Jiang Feng was serious. Lu Yin looked at Jiang Feng. "I might have found Tianxi." Jiang Feng's eyes lit up and he looked excited. "Are you sure?" Lu Yin said, "I'm not sure, but there's a chance." "Good. You finally found him." "Go." Jiang Feng said. He frowned. "But it's a little troublesome. That guy is not easy to deal with." Lu Yin was solemn. "Uncle Jiang, that's why I'm here. I didn't participate in the siege of Tianxi in the second battlefield of tragedy, so I don't know his strength. Uncle Jiang, you should know." Jiang Feng's expression was solemn. "Tianxi is very strong. First, he's a primordial realm expert, so the rules can't get close to him. This caused many of us to lose the initiative. Secondly, he's very talented. Although he doesn't have the power to kill, he seems to be able to see through everything. Whether it's battle techniques, cultivation methods, or the flow of power, he can see through them all. I couldn't injure him at all." Lu Yin's heart sank. He knew the Thunder Lord's strength well. He was definitely at the top, almost on par with the Three Realms and Six Paths. If he had the turbid treasure, the Three Realms and Six Paths might not be his match. Even he couldn't injure Tianxi at all? I didn't understand his sequence rules before. Now that I think about it, it should be superposition. Superposition? Lu Yin pondered. Jiang Feng said, superposition your own attack ability, or superposition your opponent's attack ability. Lu Yin was surprised. Superposition my opponent's attack ability? What do you mean? Chapter 3244. Lu Yin recalled that Tianfa's law of order was speed. It could increase his own speed, but it could also increase his enemy's attack speed. Once his speed increased, his enemy's killing power would dissipate before it could even touch him. Could Tianxi's law of order be similar to this? Once an attack is stacked, you cannot attack at the moment of stacking, or else it wouldn't be stacked. Since Tianxi has control over the stacking, he can choose to release the stacked power at any time. In other words, any attack of yours might be ineffective against him. Eventually he will release it, but by then Tianxi will be long gone, Jiang Feng explained. Lu Yin sighed. This law of order was even more troublesome than Tianfa's. It was no wonder that this guy was called the strongest of the Four Directions Guardians. What about the turbid treasure? Lu Yin asked. This was the most important thing. When Jialan Zhiluo had warned the Thunder Lord, the first thing he had mentioned was the turbid treasure. Jiang Feng's expression relaxed. The turbid treasure isn't a big problem. If you know about it, it's meaningless. If you don't, you'll definitely die if you fight him. Fortunately, Jialan Zhiluo from your spacetime reminded me. Otherwise, I might not even be sitting here talking to you right now. Tianxi's turbid treasure only has one ability. 3 feet of azure blade, limitless. Lu Yin's eyes flashed as he looked at Jiang Feng. Jiang Feng explained, his turbid treasure is a sword. 3 feet away from the blade doesn't count as distance. Do you understand? Lu Yin sucked in a breath of cold air. If not for Jialan Jilua's warning, the Thunder Lord would not have been able to leave the battlefield alive. 3 feet did not count as distance. This meant that when Tianxi's sword descended, the enemy would not be able to dodge as long as they were within 3 feet of the blade. They would have to bear the brunt of the attack. For an expert like the Thunder Lord, he would definitely be able to guess this ability. However, that attack was definitely not simple and Tianxi would not have wasted it. Against an expert like Tianxi, even the Thunder Lord did not dare say that he would survive. Lu Yin was also glad that Jialan Jilua had been there. Otherwise, that battle would have been over. After losing the Thunder Lord, the enemy would have freed up Tianxi. How could they have fought? This was also why Tianxi had been so impatient to start the battle. At that time he would have been confident in defeating the Above Heaven sect. Any later and the human experts would have increased, he would not have been so confident. Now that I know his turbid treasure's ability, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's just a distance of 3 feet. Jiang Feng said. Lu Yin nodded and thought for a moment. Are you sure this is the only ability? Jiang Feng said helplessly. I'm not sure, but in that battle Tianfeng was killed by you. He didn't use any other abilities, so there shouldn't be any mistake. That was the most advantageous battle for him. He didn't even win that battle. Next he'll be facing the Celestial sect. It's even more impossible for him to win. So he shouldn't be hiding. Lu Yin stood up. Since that's the case, let's take a look. Jiang Feng's expression was solemn. Even if I'm facing an eternal, I can still fight. But that Tianxi makes me feel helpless. This feeling is very uncomfortable. I hope I can find him. If they wanted to kill Tianxi, the more experts they had, the better. However, Lu Yin's search for the illusory gravel in the second domain of disaster had attracted the attention of the Eternals. Now, many Eternals had appeared at the borders of the 6 paths of reincarnation realm, ready to come out at any moment. This made it impossible for Lu Yin to mobilize more experts to kill Tianxi. Otherwise, who knew when the Eternals would suddenly attack? Compared to besieging Tianxi, the Eternal race's situation was much more serious. Yes. In the end, he had no other choice. Aside from Lightning Master Jiang Feng, Lu Yin had only brought Jialan Jilua. Even if the others went, it would be pointless. Actually, Lu Yin alone was equivalent to Hongyan Mavis and Wu Tian. Right, there were also Su Wang and the Strength Beast, these 2 giants. 5 peerless Master Pros were the lineup to kill Tianxi this time. The prerequisite was that they could actually find Tianxi. Lu Yin gripped the compass and slowly tore through the void. Jiang Feng looked at the compass in Lu Yin's hand and sighed. This belonged to Bai Rong. He had been searching for Bai Rong for a long time, but he still hadn't been able to find her. Let's go, Lu Yin growled. The group sat on Su Wang's back and charged into the void. Lu Yin's previous mount had been the Hellworm, but now it had become Su Wang. From Lu Yin's point of view, Su Wang had leveled up. Su Wang was much more powerful than the Hellworm, and the Hellworm was also a silly toy. After passing through the void, Lu Yin and the others were greeted by a dark expanse of space that was no different from most others. That way. Lu Yin directed Su Wang to find the sequence of strings and then followed it in a certain direction. He was already very familiar with this scene. He had once roamed the heavens and so many years had passed in the blink of an eye. Su Wang's body swelled up and Jialan Jilua was rather surprised. She had the urge to pierce Su Wang with a needle. Soon enough, Su Wang charged into a starless region of space that was completely shrouded in darkness. The moment they arrived, everyone's attention was drawn to the distance. Far away, a giant stone door stood tall, connecting the heavens and the earth. They couldn't see the top or the bottom, and it just stood there in space as if it had existed since ancient times. Su Wang's body was already quite large, but compared to the stone door, it was still very small. Lu Yin and the others looked on in shock. I've been here before. More accurately, Tianfeng has been here before. Jialan Jilua was excited. They had finally found it. She had been sealed in Tianfeng's body for countless years, and he had thought that she had died. Thus she knew many secrets, but she had never known where they were. If Tianfeng and the others had been able to find this place, then they naturally wouldn't have discussed such matters. They had also not discussed this matter with outsiders for many years. Jialan Jilua couldn't find this place, but she recognized it. It's that stone door. Tianxi should be sitting in front of it. In the past I felt like he was guarding it but also protecting it, Xianxia said. Lu Yin and the others exchanged glances. They had finally found it. At the same time, beneath the stone door, Tianxi suddenly opened his eyes and looked over. His expression changed. How was this possible? They had actually found this place. The next moment, lightning lit up in the distance and blasted towards Tianxi. Tianxi wielded his sword and cut through the lightning. You're all courting death. Lu Yin sneered and punched at Tianxi from afar. The power of this punch was the same as when he had broken through the unbounded ancestors' world. Lu Yin's true strength was meant to surprise Tianxi. At this moment, Tianxi was still panting in the clothes he had worn during the Second Calamity Realm battle. There were still traces of blood on them, but he didn't care about the blood, much less the sand. This person had slaughtered the Lost Clan and viewed them as ants, but he had never thought that they would find him. Xianxia brandished her spear and stabbed into the distance. A terrifying collision occurred in the vast starry sky as Tianxi stabbed at Lu Yin. His first target was Lu Yin. Without Lu Yin, the humans would lose their flag. The God-sealing catalog appeared above Lu Yin's head, followed by Wu Tianwei. Hongyan Mavis walked out. Tianxi, Tianfa is waiting for you up ahead. Around Tianxi, Jiangfeng, Xianxia, Su Wang, Li Shou, Wu Tianwei and Hongyan Mavis all attacked. Even though Tianxi had an innate gift that allowed him to observe the entire situation, preventing Jiangfeng from injuring him at all, it was impossible for him to defend himself against so many experts. The 3-foot-long sword cut through Xianxia's spear and Jiangfeng's lightning, and tore through Li Shou and Su Wang's flesh. However, it was still repelled by Hongyan Mavis and Wu Tianwei's strength. Lu Yin followed closely behind, punching out when he was a meter away from the sword. Tianxi pointed out with a finger, stopping Lu Yin's punch in the form of a stack. Lu Yin waved his hand and earthen spears shot out from all directions towards Tianxi. Tianxi could prevent the laws from getting close to him, but he could not stop Lu Yin's power. Lu Yin had the power to threaten a primordial realm expert, but he was not a sequence law. This was the most unbearable thing for a primordial realm expert. The sword swept past and the earthen spears were cut apart, but more and more of them appeared around them. Tianxi was surprised. You actually broke through the 4 locks formation? You'll be surprised, Lu Yin shouted and faced Tianxi, thrusting out earthen spears one after another. Tianxi pointed out with a finger, stacking the power of the earthen spears. Behind him, Jiangfeng raised his sword and slashed down. Tianxi turned around and slashed at Jiangfeng as well. Jiangfeng hurriedly retreated, almost entering the 3-foot-long sword. Xianxia directly used his 8-star innate gift, condensing earthen spears one after another in his original position. A square array of earthen spears appeared around him, suppressing Tianxi. Tianxi dodged and stacked his power. The stacked earthen spears pierced through the void, intercepting Xianxia's earthen spear array. Lu Yin stepped backwards and appeared behind Tianxi. On the other side, Hongyan Mavis and Wu Tianwei attacked at the same time. The 3 of them combined to force Tianxi into a corner. Tianxi spun his sword and swept it in all directions. His fingertips tapped the void, and the sword's phantom solidified before slashing down in all directions. He had stacked the power of his own sword with his sequence laws, instantly tearing apart Hongyan Mavis and Wu Tianwei's shadows. The earth in front of Lu Yin turned into a shield that blocked the sword's edge, causing a violent collision. The strength beast punched Tianxi from high up in the sky. As one of the strongest creatures in the universe, its punch was not easy to take. Tianxi barely dodged, but behind him Su Wang slammed into his waist and sent him flying. Tianxi felt the same sensation that Lu Yin had experienced before. This was the first time Tianxi had been injured and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked back, his gaze ferocious and filled with murderous intent. Jiang Feng's entire body was covered in a dark purple color, and terrifying lightning wrapped around his sword as he slashed down, not giving Tianxi any time to breathe. Tianxi raised his head and raised his sword. He wrapped one hand around the hilt, seemingly letting go of the sword but also controlling it in a strange way. The 2 swords collided, causing a crisp cracking sound to ring out. The aftershocks swept out in all directions, tearing apart the boundless void world as the lightning illuminated the darkness. Strands of swords might slashed against the stone door, causing it to sway and leave behind marks. Lu Yin rushed towards Tianxi holding the earthen spear and thrusting it out. Tianxi's gaze fell as he stepped into the void. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, and each step caused the void to collapse. Although the power was not great, that was only relative to people at Lu Yin's level. If it had been an ordinary progenitor, they would have been crushed to death by the collapsing void. Lu Yin's attack was restrained, and the earthen spear was unable to strike out. Chapter 32:45. Tianxi pushed Jiang Feng away with his sword. In front of him Jialan Jilua appeared. His white spear pierced through the starry sky, leaving only a white dot in the dark starry sky. It was getting closer and closer. Below him, Lu Yin also stabbed out with his spear of earth. 2 spears appeared at the same time. Tianxi's eyes were piercingly cold. Around him sequence rules erupted. Jialan Jilua was alert. Be careful. Lu Yin still couldn't see the sequence particles, but that didn't stop him from sensing them. The sequence particles surrounding Tianxi kept stacking up all the attacks. Be it his own or Lu Yin's, all the attacks were blocked within 100 meters. In the end they exploded at the same time. A terrifying destructive force spread out in all directions. Su Wang and the strength beast hurriedly retreated. They had yet to recover from their injuries from their battle with Lu Yin, and they did not want to get any closer. Jialan Jilua was forced back by Yu Wei. Jiang Feng rushed towards Yu Wei as thunder exploded. Lu Yin's heart released the starry sky, and at the same time the azure sky palace appeared. Tianxi and Jiang Feng's sword strikes were endless, isolating the void, making it difficult for outsiders to enter. Once they entered they would be torn to pieces. Lu Yin found an opportunity and punched out. Tianxi and Jiang Feng's swords clashed, and when Lu Yin punched out, Jiang Feng immediately retreated. Tianxi turned around and looked at the power of Lu Yin's punch. He waved his hand and superimposed his sequence laws. But this punch had scattered the sequence particle. Tianxi was shocked. How could this be? The wind from the fist brushed past Tianxi's forehead, paralyzing half of his body. This power, he stared at Lu Yin in shock. How could a human possess such strength? He could accept that Su Wang and the strength beast possessed such immense power, but he could not accept that Lu Yin possessed such power. Once a human possessed such power, they would be completely different from the astral beast. This was a metamorphosis of power. You've transformed again? Tianxi stared at Lu Yin in shock. Who is this kid? What kind of existence was that? It had only been a short while, but he had constantly changed. He was only a progenitor now. He had not comprehended the laws of the sequence yet, let alone the primordial realm. However, his current strength had shocked him as a primordial realm expert. He struggled to deal with it. Just what level would this child reach once he reached the primordial realm? He did not dare to think about it. He couldn't wait any longer. He had to get rid of this kid as soon as possible. But now it wasn't him who wanted to deal with Lu Yin. It was Lu Yin who wanted to deal with him. If 1 punch was not enough, then he would throw 2 punches. If 2 punches were not enough, then he would throw 20 punches. It was just like when he was fighting against Su Wang and Li Shou. In the face of absolute power, any resistance was as thin as paper. Lu Yin punched out again. Although it was powerful, it failed to hit Tianxi. Tianxi dodged it and then punched again and again. Although Tianxi had not used the power of time at his level, it was not difficult for him to cross or parallel time. Although Lu Yin was strong, it would be useless if he could not hit Tianxi. But Tianxi was not optimistic because Jiang Feng, Jialan Jilua, and the others had stopped and did not join in. They clearly knew that Lu Yin's power couldn't hit them, but they didn't participate. There was only one possibility. Lu Yin could hit them. Tianxi did not want to take the risk. He took a step forward and the starry sky collapsed. His footsteps shattered the void as he retreated into the distance. Each step caused the starry sky to tremble. A world of nothingness appeared in the cracks. At that moment Tianxi discovered a strange sight. There should not be any stars in this starry sky, but there were stars everywhere. These stars had not been shattered by Lu Yin's power. He approached a star and smashed it with a raise of his hand. It was very ordinary, but the star quickly recovered. The other stars in the sky near Lu Yin's heart had been drawn out by the Sirius technique. Now that they had merged with the azure sky palace, their power would not dissipate. No matter how many times they were shattered, they would recover. Even the stars made of divine power, the gray stars that had taken root in the time tree, or the skyfall cascade that flowed with void god power would recover in an instant. But these were not enough to deal with Tianxi. The only thing that could deal with Tianxi was that piece of land. It was the ancestral world that had evolved from the mortal world. The land covered the starry sky, covering everything as far as the eye could see. It seemed to fill the entire sky. Tianxi's expression changed. The earth's spear had already made him wary. This land suppression might not be much weaker than Tai Chu's. He hurriedly tore through the void and left. At that moment danger appeared. Stars appeared from all directions and smashed towards him. These stars had been formed by Lu Yin's power. Within the Azure Sky Palace the power would not dissipate. The primogenitor's Azure Sky Palace had been formed by war weapons. The 3 realms and 6 paths needed war weapons to leave. Lu Yin's Azure Sky Palace was made of these stars. The serious technique had saved Lu Yin the trouble of carving and turning void into reality. At that moment, these stars represented the power that Lu Yin had unleashed. Stars were crashing down all around them. Tianxi kept dodging, but the number of stars did not decrease. As long as he was in the Azure Sky Palace, the power would not decline. In fact, as Lu Yin unleashed more and more stars, they increased. With a bang, a star smashed into the blade, sending Tianxi far away. Tianxi's arm went numb. How could this be? He looked at his surroundings. To him, the stars were like meteorites to a normal person. They posed a great threat. This should not be. With his power, it would be easy for him to destroy spacetime. These stars were not ordinary. One star after another streaked past. Tianxi slashed out again and again, shattering them. Above him, the land continued to fall, bringing with it a terrifying pressure. Tianxi could feel Lu Yin suppressing him. Impossible. He was a primordial realm powerhouse. How could he be suppressed by a progenitor? Impossible. Impossible. Around him, the sequence particles spread out wildly, trying to superimpose the power of the land, but they were constantly suppressed. Even the power of the falling stars broke through the sequence particles. This allowed Tianxi to see the truth. He looked at Lu Yin in shock. The Azure Sky Palace. Lu Yin was not surprised that Tianxi recognized it. The guardians had surrounded the primogenitor. The Azure Sky Palace was the primogenitor's ultimate technique. It would be strange if Tianxi did not recognize it. How do you know the Azure Sky Palace? Tianxi stared at Lu Yin in disbelief. Lu Yin's gaze was cold. Surprised? Back then you used the 4 locks formation against the primogenitor and sealed off his Azure Sky Palace. Today I will let you die here. Stars smashed down from the sky and on the ground, drowning Tianxi. Boom. The starry sky expanded and exploded. Tianxi's hair was disheveled. He panted heavily and pointed his sword at Lu Yin. Just as he was about to say something, the land pressed down from above, burying Tianxi again. The starry sky cracked in all directions. The stone door shook and dust covered the void. Tianxi was pressed down by the land. He roared and tore the land apart with his sword. Jiang Feng and Zhao landed on the land together. They stabbed down with their sword and spear. Blood splattered on the land. Li Shou and Su Wang watched from afar. They stared at each other. The god catalog shone with golden light again. Wu Tian and Hongyan Mavis walked out. They cooperated with Jiang Feng and Zhao to kill Tianxi. This was a perfect opportunity. If they did not kill Tianxi now, they might not have another chance in the future. Below the land, Tianxi was in a miserable state. He had suffered all kinds of injuries. Above him, Jiang Feng and the rest were still attacking. He gritted his teeth. His eyes were filled with bone-deep hatred. He let go of the sword hilt. The sword spun around him and turned into a green light that completely enveloped him. He charged out of the land with an irresistible force and headed for the stone door. Lu Yin was waiting for Tianxi to escape. Tianxi could not be killed so easily. He was especially concerned about whether or not a blood-red figure would appear, similar to when Tianfa had died. Seeing the green light rush out, Lu Yin took out the Grim Reaper's left arm and slashed with the Grim Reaper's hook. The deathly aura swept across the sky, splitting the entire starry sky into 2. It was like a mirror, smooth and neat. The deathly aura slashed onto the green light, but it did not cut it. Instead, it formed a huge pushing force that pushed the green light in the direction that Tianxi had fled, which was the direction of the stone door. Lu Yin hurriedly slashed out again. Within the Sky Palace, he could use the Grim Reaper's slash countless times. Unfortunately, the green light smashed into the stone door and then disappeared into the gap. The Grim Reaper's slash viciously slashed at the stone door, leaving a deep mark. However, it could not kill Xianxia. It only caused the stone door to shake continuously, causing more dust to fall. It was as if the dust had drowned out the entire starry sky. Everything was gray. Everyone quickly chased after Xianxia, wanting to rush into the gap of the stone door. However, they found that there was no gap at all. The gap they saw was only because the two stone doors were joined together. That black line could only be seen when one approached the gap. Could not allow any creature to enter. However, Xianxia had clearly escaped from here. Lu Yin raised his hand and pressed on the stone door. He exerted force, but the stone door only shook. As he exerted more force, the shaking increased, but it still did not open. Jiang Feng, Jialan Zhuluo, Li Shou and Su Wang all tried to open the stone door, but they could not. The stone door stood tall in the starry sky, as if it was holding up the entire universe. "Senior, do you know what's behind the stone door?" Lu Yin asked. Jialan Zhuluo shook his head. "I've been here many times in Tianfeng's body, but I've never heard them mention the situation behind the stone door. They did not even mention the stone door itself. It was as if they could not see it." Lu Yin stared at the stone door and thought of a possibility. Could it be that behind the stone door leads to the universe where Xianxia is? Jiang Feng said, "It's very possible." Jialan Zhuluo also thought of it. "If that's the case, if we open it rashly, we will come into contact with the enemy of that universe. Xianxia might not be the strongest in that universe. The premise is that we have to open the stone door first. It's not easy to open it now," Lu Yin said. As he spoke, he stood in between the two stone doors and pressed on one of them. He exerted force again, trying to push it open directly. However, no matter how much force he exerted, the stone door shook violently. He could not open it. Jiang Feng said, "There's no need to try. The stone door itself can be opened, but there's something blocking it behind it." "You mean the door bolt?" Jialan Zhuluo asked. Jiang Feng nodded. Lu Yin looked at the gap. "If there's really a door bolt, then it won't work just by pushing it open. We have to remove the bolt first, but we can't pass through this gap. No matter how small our bodies are, we can't pass through it. If Xianxia can pass through it, he must have a way." The stone door could not be opened, so they searched the surrounding area. Gradually, a frightening fact occurred. There was a boundary in the starry sky parallel to the stone door. Chapter 3246. It could not be seen with the naked eye, and the sky was still the same, deep and dark. Only by approaching it could one touch the boundary. The boundary stretched for an unknown distance. Lu Yin rode Su Wang and used the stone gate as a starting point to head in a certain direction. He discovered that no matter how far away it was, the boundary still existed. Jialan Zhuluo also sent news from the other side. The place she touched also had a boundary. After some time they met again at the stone gate. "The boundary is like the stone gate. It cannot be broken," Jialan Zhuluo said. "This is not the limit of a parallel universe. There are many parallel universes in the universe, and some are big and some are small. Regardless of size, the boundary is not a physical one. Instead, it can tear through the void and lead to other parallel universes. However, this boundary is different. It's like a wall," Jiang Feng continued. He did not check the surroundings as he wanted to guard the stone gate to prevent Xianxia from coming out. "Uncle Jiang, what did you think of?" Lu Yin asked. Jiang Feng sighed. "The butterfly appeared on behalf of the heavens and invited me to join the guardians of the four directions. At that time, when we talked about the responsibilities of the guardians of the four directions, I asked, what's the difference between different universes? How can I tell if I belong to another universe?" Tian replied, "The aura is different. If there is no barrier, the aura will not be different. There must be a barrier between universes, and this barrier is very tight. It's like a wall, the wall of the universe." Jialan Zhuluo looked at the stone gate. "This is where Xianxia is. The guardians of the four directions mean that they are guarding four directions. This means that there are four walls in this universe that separate our universe from the other universes. This means that there is a limit to our universe." Lu Yin's mind suddenly lit up and he blurted out, "That's why the Eternals want to destroy the sequence of strings." He looked at Jiang Feng and Jialan Zhuluo. "The birth of the universe is very precise to the people who belong to this universe, down to a speck of dust or even an atom. The current state of our universe is made up of countless parallel universes, and these parallel universes are connected by the sequence of strings to stabilize this universe. Once the sequence of strings is destroyed, the parallel universes will be scattered. What will happen to our universe? Jialanjilua's face sank. Disaster. It's a disaster for any species, Jiang Feng said. In the past, Muji had told him that the Eternals were destroying the sequence of the string in order to cause the various parallel spacetimes to collapse and crush countless parallel spacetimes in order to take control of the universe. That was why White Cloud City had stopped them. Immemorial City was either the end or the starting point of the sequence of the string, and it was also the largest battlefield. But now Lu Yin realized that the Eternals' goal was not that simple. Once the sequence of strings was destroyed, it wouldn't be as simple as crushing the parallel universe. Instead, the entire universe might be destroyed. It was like a pot of water that kept heating up and the heat inside kept increasing. If there was no vent, the pot of water would explode. If there was a vent, the water inside would turn into steam and dissipate. In either case, adding energy to a fixed space would only lead to the destruction of that fixed space. In the end, the water would disappear. Parallel dimensions and the various species were like the water in the sealed pot that was the universe. The Eternals were constantly destroying the strings of the sequence to increase their energy. Jiang Feng's face turned ugly. I thought the Eternals only wanted to use the parallel universe to crush humanity. I didn't expect them to want to destroy the entire universe. But if that's the case, what will happen to them? Restart, Lu Yin said. Jiang Feng's eyes narrowed and he fell silent. No one could truly destroy the universe. When the universe was destroyed by the expansion of all the parallel universes, the entire universe would collapse, forming the singularity that had been born at the beginning of the universe. It would be a big bang that would form a new universe. To the universe, this was a restart. Everything that existed in the universe would completely disappear, and a new round of evolution would begin. As for the Eternals, Lu Yin looked at the stone door. They had a place to go, and that was Tianxi's universe. If it was as he guessed, then it made sense why the people from Tianxi's universe had not come to this one earlier. They were waiting for the rebooted new universe to live in. Perhaps the new universe would have something they wanted. Lu Yin thought about how the elder god and patriarch Lu Yuan had broken through to the primordial realm, and he had an even more terrifying guess. Were the people from Tianxi's universe and the Eternals planning to use the rebooted new universe to take the first breath and step into the primordial realm? That was just too crazy. The only true god had already overcome bitter adversity, so his goal might be to reach the eternal realm. As for Tianxi and the people from his universe, they must have prepared for a very, very long time. There were a bunch of experts of the laws of sequence waiting to step into the primordial realm. Once they succeeded and all of them stepped into the primordial realm, just what would that be like? Let alone the current above the heavens, even if they worked together with the once extremely resplendent above the heavens, they would not be able to emerge victorious. The people from Tianxi's universe would become the true rulers. He constantly thought about what the only true God had said. He remembered that it was impossible to break through to the eternal realm in this universe. Was he referring to this situation? Only by rebooting this universe could they reach the eternal realm? At that moment, Lu Yin thought of many, many things. He parted the fog that had always shrouded him and saw a sliver of truth. He suddenly thought of the turbid stratagem that Mr. Mu had mentioned in the past. Using the poison of time to corrupt the primordial space was believed to be the turbid stratagem. Even Mr. Mu had acknowledged it, but was it really the turbid stratagem? Even the 7 sky gods believed it to be the turbid stratagem. But at that moment, Lu Yin rejected all of that. He seemed to have seen through the plans of the Eternals. If his guesses were true, then what roles did certain people play in all of this? The maiden, the ancestor, the ancient god, and the blood-red figure that appeared after Tianfa's death. What roles did they play? Especially the blood-red figure. If he approved of this method, it meant that he had not stepped into the eternal realm. Not only did the Eternals want to use this opportunity to step into the eternal realm, but the blood-red figure also had such plans. This method was too cruel. It was sacrificing the entire universe for their sake. But for Tianxi, it was a dream because what was sacrificing was not their universe. Stopping the creatures from the outer universe from entering and humans being uncontrollable were all lies. The ancestor would never allow such a thing to happen, so he insisted on the sequence's string. The above heavens of that era and humans were their greatest obstacles. The creatures from the outer universe could also be an obstacle. This was their true goal. Lu Yin looked at Jiang Feng and Zhao. Had they thought of this? Tianxi has already escaped. Before we find a way to open the stone door, I will guard here. You can go back, said Jiang Feng. Lu Yin was worried. Uncle Jiang, if the stone door is opened and the enemies from the outer universe enter, retreat if you can't win. This is not your problem alone. Jiang Feng smiled. Don't worry. Are you worried that I will fight to the death? I won't win in a fight. I'll take over after a while, said Jialonjilo. Jiang Feng shook his head. There's no need. It's not that important to us anymore. Maybe I can see something at the edge of the universe and break through to the primordial realm. Let's go back. Lu Yin and Jialonjilo left. Returning was simple, they just tore through the void. With lightning master Jiang Feng's strength, even if the enemies from the outer universe appeared, they might not be able to do anything as long as they did not fight to the death. The most important thing now was to confirm his guess. He hoped that his guess was not correct. Otherwise, the enemies of the humans would not only be the Eternals, Xianxia, and the others from the outer universe. There were also hidden old monsters who did not care about the lives of the humans. They were more interested in breaking through. The eternal life realm was the greatest temptation for everyone. When they returned to the above heavens, Su Wuji was already waiting. Lu Yin shook his head. He escaped. Su Wuji was helpless and left bleakly. He will definitely come again. As long as he comes, there will be a chance, said Lu Yin. Su Wuji stood still, turned around and bowed deeply to Lu Yin. Thank you, Master Lu. After Su Wuji left, Lu Yin sat down and organized his thoughts again. This was a huge game of chess that had been played since the above heavens era. If not for Immemorial City, this game of chess would have ended long ago. Zhao Ran poured tea for Lu Yin. Lu Yin smelled the fragrance of the tea and took a sip. He felt much better. One could not always be tense. The more urgent the situation was, the more one had to relax. Lu Yin wanted to find out if his guess was correct, so he could not be anxious. He looked down the mountain and saw a courtyard filled with books. It was Tuo Lin. Tuo Lin was not the only one in the courtyard. Little Can was there as well. Bring Little Can to see me, said Lu Yin. The second Night King bowed and walked out. Soon Little Can was brought over by the second Night King. Seeing Lu Yin, Little Can was excited and quickly knelt down. Greetings, Master. Lu Yin looked at Little Can and smiled. Get up. Yes, Master. Little Can kept calling him Master, afraid that Lu Yin would not recognize him. After all, they had not formally become his disciple. Lu Yin looked at Little Can. Little Can was nervous and met Lu Yin's gaze. Then he quickly lowered his head. Have you seen Tuo Lin? Asked Lu Yin. Little Can nodded and said with admiration, Senior is too serious. Reading so many books is not enough. I will definitely learn from you. I lied to him, said Lu Yin. Little Can was shocked. Lu Yin and Little Can looked at each other. He was born unable to cultivate, so I lied to him. You should know. Little Can lowered his head and did not say anything. Maybe I lied to you as well, said Lu Yin. Little Can's heart sank and he quickly knelt down. Master, did I do something wrong? Please don't give up on me. Master. Lu Yin raised his hand to stop Little Can. What do you think of Tuo Lin? Little Can looked down at the ground and his thoughts were in a mess. He did not know how to answer. Answer according to what you think. I feel that although Senior is stupid, he has a kind of perseverance that is admirable. Lu Yin laughed. But he will never be able to cultivate. His life will end soon. I am willing to serve Senior until the end of my life, Little Can said hurriedly. Lu Yin shook his head. Get up. I did not say I would give up on you. Chapter 32:47. Little Can trembled and stood up slowly. He still lowered his head and didn't dare to look at Lu Yin. He remembered the first time he met Lu Yin. It was at the back of the battlefield. Who would have thought that after so many years, Lu Yin would have reached this step? If he had known, he would have taken Lu Yin as his master. However, Lu Yin wasn't that powerful back then. Lu Yin looked at Little Can. As the descendant of ancestor Hui, you have guts and a plan. You are just an ant, yet you dared to scheme against the Wang family. No one in the big Wang family could see through you. Based on this, you are worthy of being the descendant of ancestor Hui. I owe you a favor. After cultivating the Sky Palace, I will return the favor. From today onwards, Huiken, you are my disciple. Huiken quickly knelt down. Disciple Huiken greets master. Lu Yin's expression was solemn as he looked at Huiken. As my disciple, you should stand at the top of this universe. Remember not to bully others, not to go against morality, and not to betray humanity. As my disciple, what you gain will surpass everyone else. What you bear will also surpass everyone else. Whether your future is bright or dark, it depends on you and me. Are you willing to bear the karma of being my disciple? Huichen didn't hesitate. I am willing to bear it. I will follow Master everywhere. I will not regret even if I die. Good, I hope you won't disappoint me, Lu Yin said. Lu Yin didn't say much about Tuol Lin because Tuol Lin couldn't cultivate. However, Huichen was different. He was bold, careful, decisive and smart. He was good at using small things to gain big things. If he had a good temperament, he would benefit others. If he didn't have a good temperament, it would be a disaster. After Huichen came to the Above Sky sect, Lu Yin asked someone to investigate him. The result was satisfactory. He wasn't someone who would be blinded by benefits. He fought for his own opportunities. This was also the reason why Lu Yin was willing to accept him as his disciple. If his temperament wasn't up to standard, Lu Yin wouldn't accept him as his disciple. His disciple's status in this universe was too high. It was like the 3 realms and 6 paths. What Huichen learned was the Blue Sky Palace. On one hand, the Sky Palace tested one's temperament and patience. There was enough time for everyone to get familiar with Little Can. On the other hand, Lu Yin learned the Sky Palace through him. It was the most suitable for him to impart it. As for how long Little Can would need to cultivate the Blue Sky Palace, that would be up to him. It wasn't that he couldn't learn anything else along the way. There were too many cultivation techniques in the 5th pagoda, and as Lu Yin's disciple, it was easy for him to learn them. Whatever he wanted to learn, it was up to him. Take good care of your senior brother, Tuol Lin, Lu Yin emphasized. Little Can said respectfully, "Don't worry, Master. I will definitely take good care of senior apprentice brother." The second Night King looked at Little Can enviously. This was another person who had reached the heavens in a single step. This person was different from Tuol Lin. No matter what, Tuol Lin could not cultivate and the resources he could enjoy were extremely scarce. This person was Master Lu's true disciple. He would be the envy of everyone in the universe. He quietly drank the tea that Zhao Ran had brewed for him, waiting for Hongyan Mavis to arrive. "I've cultivated divine power." Lu Yin went straight to the point. Hongyan Mavis' body trembled as she looked at Lu Yin in shock. "You've cultivated divine force?" Lu Yin met her gaze. After looking at each other for a moment, Hongyan Mavis suddenly smiled. Lu Yin was surprised. "Senior knows." Hongyan Mavis said, "Do you take us for fools? During the second battle of Calamity Region, you fought with Bai Xiener in the Divine Force Lake for so long and were still fine. Everyone knows." Lu Yin had completely forgotten about this. "After the battle, Fertile Earth took the initiative to tell us about this," Hongyan Mavis said. Lu Yin's heart warmed. Even though he had done a lot for humanity, there were many people who were doing things for him in secret as well. It was just that he did not see it. Little 7 Divine power is an eternal power. Even though there is no right or wrong in power, divine power is an exception. Even Master said that divine power can affect a person's rationality, Hongyan Mavis reminded. The scene from the Book of Destiny flashed through Lu Yin's mind. He nodded. "I know. Don't worry, Senior. I've walked a longer path than an eternal one." Hongyan Mavis smiled. "We were definitely worried in the past, but now we are. With your strength, controlling divine power shouldn't be a problem. Is this why you came to me today?" Senior Wu Tian and the others know? "Of course. Don't worry." Lu Yin nodded. "All right. Then I can rest assured about what I'm going to do next." "What is it?" Hongyan Mavis was puzzled. Lu Yin looked at Hongyan Mavis. "Destroy the Black Mother Tree." Lu Yin arrived at Lu Tianjing. After his conversation with Hongyan Mavis, he had wanted to use Nightshore's identity to absorb divine power and destroy the Black Mother Tree. However, he suddenly remembered that there was one more thing he had yet to do, and that was Madman Lu. He still had a bet with Madman Lu. Lu Yin arrived at the place where Madman Lu was imprisoned in Lu Tianjing, his expression calm. In the distance, in the dark underground, Madman Lu suddenly opened his eyes, his gaze flickering with bloodlust and madness. He grinned. He was here. Madman Lu walked out of the underground and looked across. Lu Yin stood there calmly. "I'm here for the bet." Madman Lu stared at Lu Yin with a ferocious gaze. "Are you confident in defeating me? Tell me who helped me push away your general appointment platform." Lu Yin asked indifferently. In the distance, Lu Yuan and Lu Tianyi were both present. This day had finally come. Lu Yuan's gaze was complicated. Today's bet was also the day of Madman Lu's death. He had betrayed humanity and joined the eternal race. Lu Tianjing's sky darkened. Would Lu Yin win? There was no need to answer this question. Everyone knew that Madman Lu was doomed. Madman Lu himself knew that Lu Yin was not a blindly arrogant person. Since he had come to the bet, it meant that he had reached the point where he could defeat him or even kill him. That was fine, he had lived long enough. Junior, if you want to know the answer, you'll have to beat me first. Lu Yin raised a hand and flicked his finger, his power transforming into a sharp sword that cut through the chains binding Madman Lu. Madman Lu's pupils shrank, and when he looked at Lu Yin again, his gaze had completely changed. These chains had been formed from sequence laws and even he could not break them. However, Lu Yin had easily cut through them. The difference in their strength was like heaven and earth. Ah, Junior, you're ruthless enough. I thought that there would be a bitter battle, but it seems that I was wrong. It hasn't even been that long and you're already this strong. Madman Lu laughed maniacally. Lu Yin clasped his hands behind his back. Make your move or you won't have another chance. Madman Lu's smile faded as he stared at Lu Yin with a bone-chilling glare. I hate the Lu family and I've never regretted betraying them. I've never regretted betraying humanity. With that, dark red divine force surged out of his body and dyed the sky above Lu Tianjing red. The Lu family's disciples looked up at the sky. This power made them shiver. Lu Yuan closed his eyes. Divine power, he had indeed cultivated divine power. Lu Tianyi sighed. Lu Yin looked at Madman Lu. He did not have much divine power in his body as he had not been cultivating in the Calamity Zone. Madman Lu charged at Lu Yin as his divine power surged out. He knew that there was no other power that could harm Lu Yin. The Divine Seal Catalog, the General Appointment Platform, the Power of Nightmares, or even the Corpse King transformation were not enough, far from enough. Madman Lu's eyes were ferocious. He only had one chance to attack, and it would depend on whether or not Lu Yin could withstand the attack of sequence laws and divine power. Lu Yin watched calmly as Madman Lu charged at him. He raised his hand and pointed. Madman Lu was enraged. Another finger, another finger. Back in the reincarnation spacetime, he had been beaten by Lu Tianyi's Tao of Tianyi. The power of that finger was still fresh in his memory, and now this junior was using the same finger. He went crazy and his divine power was completely released like a wild beast. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew past and the dark red divine power dissipated from both sides and quickly retreated. Madman Lu was rooted to the ground, still maintaining his charging posture. However, in front of his forehead, between his eyes, a finger had pinned him down, making him unable to move. Madman Lu stared blankly at Lu Yin, who was right in front of him. Lu Yin still had one hand behind his back and he had no intention of taking it out. The finger of the other hand froze Madman Lu in place. One more step and he would die. Madman Lu had not felt this bone-chilling cold in a long time. Lu Yin had brought him endless despair. He was not afraid of death, but a finger, just a finger, was simpler than Lu Tianyi's. At least when he used his divine power, he was confident that Lu Tianyi could not easily defeat him. Only Lu Yuan, that old bastard, could do it. Only Lu Yuan. But now how could this junior do it? How did he do it? Sequence laws and divine power were all ineffective against him? Lu Yin looked at Madman Lu with pity. This was a pitiful person. His life, his experiences, and even his ending. Madman Lu stared at Lu Yin's eyes. What did he see? Pity? Pity, pity, this kid is pitying me? Madman Lu roared and struck at Lu Yin. Lu Yin exerted force with his finger and Madman Lu was pushed back. He roared, Junior, are you pitying me? Lu Yin looked at him calmly. You are no match for me. Kill me if you can. I don't need pity and I don't need your Lu family's pity. Junior, kill me. Madman Lu rushed at Lu Yin, his eyes red and completely mad. Lu Yin grabbed Madman Lu's hand and exerted force, pressing Madman Lu down. Lu Yin looked at him. I don't want to say anything about your past. You are still an elder of my Lu family. Fulfill your promise and tell me who pushed you off the stage and what price did you pay. Madman Lu had one hand on the ground while the other was held by Lu Yin. He could not move. He smiled bitterly and looked into Lu Yin's eyes. I can tell you, but I don't want to die at the hands of that old bastard. This is also why I want to fight you to the death. Junior, kill me and I will tell you. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. Killing Madman Lu was easy, But he had to bear the consequences of this karma. After all, Madman Lu was Patriarch Lu Yuan's grandson, and the Lu family had tolerated him for so many years and felt guilty toward him. If Lu Yin killed Madman Lu, it might become a thorn in Patriarch Lu Yuan's heart. What, you don't dare? Madman Lu laughed madly. If you don't kill me, you won't know who that person is. You will never be able to repay what that person has done for you. I guarantee that you will never know who that person is. Lu Yin's eyes widened. And I agree. Chapter 3248. The redness in Madman Lu's eyes receded slightly when he heard Lu Yin's answer. He felt like his scheme had worked and he sneered. What would Lu Yuan think if he died at the hands of the most outstanding junior of the Lu family? Even though everyone wanted him dead, would Lu Yuan really let it go if he died? This was the greatest harm he could do to Lu Yuan. Once Lu Yuan had a thorn in his heart, it wouldn't be a good thing for him, the Lu family, and the most outstanding descendant of the younger generation. Madman Lu Yin's laughter disgusted him. His gaze was filled with disgust. Who was it? Madman Lu laughed foolishly. He said sternly, how many experts are there who can see through the past and present under those circumstances? And how many people can know you were in danger under those circumstances and immediately take action? You possess a mighty power that can penetrate the past and present. You have fused your own power into one and you can see through time and the future. Only then can you help you once. To that person, that one time is the proof of his own power flowing through the river of time. That power has always been with you. That's why you were able to help at that moment. You can't be even the slightest bit slower because that power has always been with you. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed in shock. The Grim Reaper. Madman Lu raised his head and said hoarsely, I still don't understand that ancient battle. The Grim Reaper clearly could have won back then. He had broken through to the primordial realm and was invincible in the universe. No one was his opponent. Even the one true God struggled to deal with him. He was just too powerful and his aura of death was too powerful. Most of the experts who surrounded him died, and the Eternals were already about to give up. But he struck out with a palm strike. It was that palm strike that missed. I still don't understand why the Grim Reaper would miss under those circumstances. And I don't understand why he would be defeated even if he missed. It was just a single palm strike. With that, Madman Lu looked at Lu Yin. His eyes were filled with inquiry and mockery. I understand now. That palm strike did not miss. He passed through the river of time and saved your life with the supreme strength of the primordial realm. The river of time was just an instant to him, but to an expert like the one true God, it was eternal. Because of that palm strike he was defeated. He clearly possessed an invincible strength, but in the end he was torn apart and died. Little brat, you will never be able to repay this debt. You will never be able to repay it. Kill me, kill me. Lu Yin stared blankly into Madman Lu's crazed eyes, as if he could see that ancient battle. Why would the Grim Reaper pay such a high price to save him? Why did they split into pieces and die? Patriarch Lu Yuan appeared in front of Madman Lu and sent a palm strike at him. Madman Lu's pupils constricted as he stared at Patriarch Lu Yuan. Bang! Lu Yin's head exploded and fresh blood dyed the sky red. This startled Lu Yin awake and he watched as Madman Lu's corpse fell to the ground. Then he looked up and saw that it was Patriarch Lu Yuan. Patriarch? Lu Yuan's gaze was complicated as he looked at Lu Yin apologetically. Little Seven, this is between me and him. I'm sorry for dragging you into this. As for what he said, don't take it seriously. No one can prove it. Lu Yin's face paled as he gulped. Where was the Grim Reaper on the day he disappeared? Lu Yuan's body trembled, but he didn't answer. Lu Yin asked anxiously, Patriarch, where is Madman Lu? Where was he that day? Where else? Of course he was in Lu Tianjing. Lu Yin shook his head. No, Patriarch, you lied to me. He wasn't in Lu Tianjing, he was with the Grim Reaper, right? Lu Yuan frowned. How could he be with Chu Haizi? You're thinking too much. Ever since Gu Yizhi tested his battle force, I've locked him up in Lu Tianjing and never let him out. Lu Tianyi walked over. Patriarch, Little Seven is the master of Above Heaven sect, the master of the origin space. There's no need to lie to him. Lu Yuan turned around and glared at Lu Tianyi. Needless to say, Lu Yin already knew. Madman Lu was at the Grim Reaper's place that day, so he saw the battle. What he said was true. Lu Tianyi's expression was complicated. Did the Grim Reaper really die to save Little Seven? Lu Yin looked at Lu Yuan wanting to get a negative answer. Lu Yuan sighed, I don't know. I wasn't there that day, otherwise Chu Haizi wouldn't have disappeared. But that day he was indeed with Chu Haizi. Gu Yizhi tested his battle force on him. After I brought him back, I wanted to ask Chu Haizi to help train him. Chu Haizi is ruthless and can subdue him, just like how I sent Tianyi to become Chu Yi's disciple. But I didn't expect that it would be a farewell. I don't know how Chu Haizi disappeared. I don't know if he's dead or alive. I only know that he can't know Little Seven, and he doesn't have the power to see the future because even I can't see the future now. It requires a bridge in the river of time. It's not something that can be done just by mastering the power of time. Chu Haizi shouldn't have such power. Now that I think about it, Madman Lu was bewitched by the Eternals to become a redback at that time. He then placed a hand on Lu Yin's shoulder. Little Seven, don't feel burdened. The possibility of Chu Haizi saving you is less than 1%. Madman Lu only said that to make you feel burdened, just like how he wanted to make me feel burdened by dying at your hands. Even if Chu Haizi really did save you, it only means that you're worth it. You don't know Chu Haizi. He's a person who only does what he thinks is right. He doesn't care about anything. Back when he suppressed the astral beasts, he fought with Big Yellow many times. It was almost a battle to the death, but he never regretted what he did. Lu Yin stood there quietly, his hands wrapped in death qi as he stared blankly. Lu Yuan and Lu Tianyi left with Madman Lu's corpse, leaving Lu Yin alone for a while. Lu Yin just stood there watching the death qi drift away. He thought back to that day, to that scarred hand. Was it worth it? Was it really the Grim Reaper? Why did he save me? A rare rain fell in Lu Tianjing, washing away the stench of blood on the ground. Lu Yin looked up and saw that the rain did not disperse. It continued to drip on his body, making him feel slightly cold. Madman Lu's words constantly echoed. The Grim Reaper could have won back then. He broke through to the primordial realm and was invincible in the universe. He was too strong. His death qi was too strong. Because of that palm he lost. He clearly had invincible strength, but in the end he was torn to pieces and died. Lu Yin looked at the rain that covered the sky as if he could see the river of time. Through the river of time, he saw a lonely figure with a Golian beside him. His hand was covered in wounds, and his skinny body faced the endless astral beasts, suppressing the heavens with his strength alone. Is it really you, Grim Reaper? Lu Yin returned to the above heaven sect. He stayed in the mountains for a few days, but he didn't see a single person. Several days later, the second Night King reported, Pathmaster, we found the whereabouts of the traitor Traceless. Lord Qingping has been captured. Traceless? Lu Yin still had some impression of this person. On the surface, he seemed to be under Deheng's control, and he had broken through to become an extreme powerhouse at the price of finding the landscape painting stone. In the end, he had submitted to Deheng and had been coerced by Deheng. After Lu Yin had clashed with Deheng, this person had secretly sided with Lu Yin and even helped him scheme against Deheng. In reality, his true identity was a spy of the Eternals. Siding with Lu Yin to deal with Deheng might have been his way of instigating a war between the human powerhouses. Unfortunately, this person's abilities were too limited, and the list of spies was confirmed as the last thing he could do. That was all he could do, and he had exposed himself to complete the last step. After that, there was no more news of this person. Senior Qingping would have no problem capturing this person, and Lu Yin was well aware of this person's strength. After some time, Traceless was captured and brought to the above heaven sect. He was an extreme powerhouse, and even if he was confirmed to have betrayed the humans, he had to be brought here for Lu Yin to take a look. Lu Yin looked at the miserable and dejected Traceless and didn't have any questions for the time being. He waved a hand and had someone take him away. Extreme powerhouses of the past were very valuable, but to Lu Yin they were just cultivators with a higher cultivation. Whether it was Traceless or Yao Lan, he wasn't interested in dealing with them personally. He finally understood some of the things that had happened in the past. When he had been weak and had clearly offended some people, they hadn't acted against him. It wasn't that they couldn't do it, but rather that they didn't want to. It felt like an ant crawling on his foot. He could kick it away, but he couldn't chase after it and trample it to death. That kind of disregard was actually the fundamental reason why many people had turned the tables. If the Eternals had foreseen the current situation, they wouldn't have allowed him to grow. They said that humans had too many weaknesses because of their emotions, but in reality all creatures were the same. The only exception was their instincts. Hungry beasts wouldn't let you go just because you were an ant and they needed to eat. Lu Yin looked at the distant sky. In his opinion, the people from Tianxi's spacetime were more like wild beasts. Then why hadn't they acted earlier? Before a second above the sky sect had appeared in the Genesis space, when the Six-Way Society was still fighting to the death with the Eternals, they had acted without fail. Why hadn't they? There was also Bai Xianer. If she had recovered Maiden's strength, she could have killed him long ago. How could she have allowed him to escape and grow to this level? Even now, once she had fully recovered Maiden's strength, she should have been able to kill him. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. He could roughly see the Eternals and the Guardians' intentions, but he couldn't see their true nature. On this day, a person appeared in the second disaster zone. It was Yi Bo. Yi Bo was naturally Lu Yin in disguise. He told the 3 realms and 6 paths about his cultivation of divine power, but he didn't intend to tell everyone before he completely defeated the Eternals to prevent them from becoming unstable. When Yi Bo appeared and wasn't attacked by Wu Tian and the others, both the Eternals and the humans knew who he was. But just like Yi Bo's mask, seeing the truth and speaking the truth were different. Atop the Black Mother Tree, the only true God looked into the distance and watched Yi Bo walk over. Chapter 32:49. Behind the sole true God, the ancestor frowned. Yi Bo. I see. The sole true God understood where Yi Bo's boundless divine power had come from. He was the only one who could see through Yi Bo's disguise. The ancient God, the Forgotten Ruins God, and the others watched as Yi Bo walked towards the Black Mother Tree. Similarly, everyone in the 6 paths of reincarnation realm looked over at Yi Bo, but they quickly shifted their gazes away as if he didn't exist. The Grand Empyrean opened his eyes and looked across, quietly watching as Yi Bo approached the Black Mother Tree. He then jumped down and entered the roots. From the beginning to the end, no one said a single word to Yi Bo, and Yi Bo didn't say a single word to anyone. It was very quiet, so quiet that it was strange. This was the tacit agreement of both sides. Lu Yin entered the roots of the Black Mother Tree. The divine power here had already been absorbed into the 6 paths of reincarnation realm, but Lu Yin's goal was not the external divine power but the internal divine power of the Black Mother Tree. According to his guess, if the Mother Tree's nutrients could be astral source, then the Black Mother Tree's nutrients could also be divine power. This was because the Mother Tree had been born before the progenitor. When the progenitor appeared, the Mother Tree had already supported this universe. The reason why astral source liquid appeared in its body was because it could be exchanged for nutrients. If the Black Mother Tree had divine power, then it should be normal. The sole true God watched as Lu Yin jumped down and his gaze turned cold. He could guess what Lu Yin was going to do and his expression turned ugly. Lu Yin did not say a word. He raised his hand and slashed horizontally, tearing apart a section of the Mother Tree's roots. Dark red divine power surged out from within. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. As expected, the sole true God's expression darkened, and the sky above the disaster zone darkened. He had underestimated Lu Yin, and this was his mistake. He had thought that this child's talent was extraordinary, and that it was already very rare for him to cultivate to this level in such a short time. He had not expected this child to become even more of a threat. First, he had obtained the support of the entire human race, which he could not tolerate. Now he had seen through the Black Mother Tree and was actually absorbing divine power. The 7 sky gods, the 3 powers and the 6 seas all absorbed divine power, but the sole true God did not care because they could not absorb much. However, Lu Yin was different. Regardless of how much he could absorb, the most terrifying thing about this child was the unknown. Even the sole true God could not see how much this person could do, and this was what he feared the most. This person was full of the unknown, and the unknown was the most terrifying. In the starry sky of the astral tree, absorbing astral essence was the biggest taboo. It would weaken the Mother Tree, making it unable to act as a barrier against the Eternals. However, there was also a saying that absorbing astral essence could increase a cultivator's strength, allowing them to undergo a qualitative transformation in the shortest amount of time possible, allowing them to defeat the Eternals in one fell swoop. It was equivalent to sacrificing the Mother Tree for the sake of mankind. In the end, this second possibility was rejected. Since ancient times, this second possibility had always existed, but it had never become the mainstream. This was because those who truly grasped the mainstream knew that the Eternals would not be defeated so easily. Even if the astral trees had 10 more progenitors or even dozens of them, they still wouldn't be able to defeat the Eternals. The Lu family could see this clearly. Later on, he had secretly extracted the astral origin liquid not for the sake of humanity's victory over the Eternals, but for his own personal gain. The 4 cardinal scales were absorbing astral origin liquid in order to increase their strength and suppress the starry sky tree. Regardless of which possibility it was, absorbing astral source liquid could indeed enhance the strength of the cultivators in the starry sky tree, because those cultivators cultivated astral source strength. Now Lu Yin absorbs the black divine power in the mother tree follows the same principle. He also cultivated divine power. As the divine power continued to be absorbed, Lu Yin waved his hand and forcefully punched a huge hole in the black mother tree. Inside, divine power flowed like a waterfall. He began to madly absorb it and a starry sky appeared in his heart. The divine power planet began to rotate faster and faster. Wu Tian and Hongyan Mavis exchanged glances, worry flashing in their eyes. Lu Yin's cultivation of divine power was not a good thing. Their master had mentioned that the one true God's divine power could change a person's mind. However, with Lu Yin's current strength he would definitely surpass the one true God in the future. At the very least he would reach the same height as the one true God. Divine power should not cause him any harm. This was why they were relieved. However, this relief was based on the past. Now as they watched Lu Yin madly absorb divine power, they became anxious again. The more divine power he absorbed, the more likely it would change. Once Lu Yin became an enemy of humanity, the consequences would be greater than the Eternals at their peak. It would cause the collapse of humanity's faith. This third divine admonition would also end with the Eternals' victory. Although they were worried, there was nothing they could do to stop it. Lu Yin had already informed them. Whether or not the 6 paths of reincarnation realm could weaken the one true God's strength was uncertain, but absorbing his divine power would definitely weaken him. If they wanted to defeat the Eternals, they would never be able to bypass the one true God. Due to that mysterious fate, Wu Tian would rather be imprisoned in the third calamity region than return to humanity. That kind of threat surpassed that of the Eternals. If humanity really wanted to break free of that shackle, they would have to climb up step by step and eradicate the Eternals before eradicating that fate. What Lu Yin was doing now was for that day. The Grand Empyrean looked down. Something like this had happened? She then looked at the one true God. This was interesting. The 6 paths of reincarnation realm had been weakening the one true God's power, but the rate of weakening was extremely slow. She had been prepared for endless years, but now that there was another method to weaken him, things were different. At the roots of the Black Mother Tree, Lu Yin's mind was clear. He eliminated all distracting thoughts and focused on absorbing divine power to strengthen his divine power planet. Divine power was also a kind of cosmic energy in his heart. Although using it would create a desire to kill, it was still a method. Even if he didn't use it, sealing this divine power in his body would weaken the one true God. Cracks appeared and spread through the gap at the roots of the Black Mother Tree. They gradually spread to the land of the second calamity region and were seen by many. Without nutrients, the tree would naturally collapse. The only true God squinted his eyes and looked down. He praised, "You are the most talented even when it comes to cultivating godly power. Dao Master Lu, do you plan to absorb all the godly power in the Black Mother Tree?" Lu Yin ignored him. The Grand Empyrean spoke up. "Eternal, are you afraid?" The one true God laughed. "I'm just lamenting. I didn't expect that the most talented person in cultivating divine power would be the enemy of divine power. Isn't this a form of irony? If Dao Lord Lu joins the Eternals because he cultivates too much divine power, then wouldn't that be a form of irony to you humans?" The Grand Empyrean sneered. "Nonsense, with his current strength no power can control him. It will only be controlled by him. You are worried that the Black Mother Tree will collapse. A fake is a fake, it can never be compared to the real thing." The one true God raised an eyebrow. "Fake? Are you talking about this Black Mother Tree?" "Wrong, it is real. This Mother Tree comes from another universe. I can tell you that it came from Tianxi's universe. To them, this Mother Tree is equivalent to your Mother Tree. Once it collapses, that universe will fight you to the death." The Grand Empyrean coldly said, "Then come." When Lu Yin heard this, he opened his eyes and looked at the Grand Empyrean with surprise. This woman was actually so responsible. "In any case, my target is only you. The others have nothing to do with me, the Grand Empyrean added. Lu Yin closed his eyes again. Sure enough, this crazy woman was still the same crazy woman. She didn't care about the Eternals or the other universes. She only focused on the one true God. This was her calamity. Everyone who crossed the calamity was crazy. It was true. But did this mother tree belong to Tianxi's universe? Did that mean that they would first transplant the mother tree from their universe and then destroy the humans? Why? Since this universe was destined to restart, wouldn't this mother tree also be destroyed here? Wait. Lu Yin suddenly thought of the mother tree of the astral tree of the Tree of Stars. When had that mother tree been born? If his previous guess was true, then it wouldn't be so simple for Tianxi's universe to transplant this mother tree. Perhaps the restart of the universe had something to do with the mother tree. The cracks grew bigger and bigger, gradually spreading to the entire root. It was equivalent to 1/10 of the black mother tree. But because it was the root, it was obviously more serious than it looked. The branches were drying up and falling, just like the Eternals, constantly withering. Wu Tian and the others looked at the black mother tree, waiting for it to collapse. The black mother tree's divine power was endless. Anyone who cultivated divine power would not be able to absorb it. Only Lu Yin was an exception, as his star could be infinitely large. Atop the black mother tree, the sole true God's gaze landed on Lu Yin's body. He saw Lu Yin's divine force planet, which was a seed of divine force. Even if all of the divine force in the calamity region was poured into it, it would not be able to reach its limit. The black mother tree's divine force would eventually be sucked dry, and when that happened, the tree would definitely collapse. The black mother tree could not collapse. Absolutely not. The one true God closed his eyes. Around him, the ancestor sensed something and slowly retreated. The others also retreated. Muji's heart palpitated as he looked at the one true God's back. Ever since he had been sealed in the 6 paths of reincarnation, the one true God had not taken action. At this moment, the entire eternal situation had changed. Grand Empyrean's expression changed. Be careful. Everyone looked at the black mother tree, including Lu Yin. He immediately looked at the one true God. At the same time, the one true God's eyes widened. His pupils turned scarlet as he grabbed the divine power river beside him and threw it out of the 6 paths of reincarnation. In an instant, the divine power river filled the sky and covered the entire calamity zone's spacetime, forming a dark red curtain. True God heaven-swapping technique. The one true God's voice rang out. Grand Empyrean shouted, one of the 3 true God ultimate techniques, eternity. You can't break the 6 paths of reincarnation. The one true God looked down at Grand Empyrean. Taihong, you did indeed seal me. How many years of bitter cultivation allowed you to be close to success? But you forgot one thing. When one's power reaches a certain level, everything can be broken. Then his pupils changed continuously. It was the Corpse King transformation. Thank you, Brother 19147, for the tip. Thank you for your support. Thank you. I've been busy these past few days. My wife's grandfather is nearing the end of his lifespan. He doesn't recognize anyone and is constantly coughing up black blood. He looks like he's in pain. Brothers, you must take care of your body and exercise more. Don't be lazy and eat healthily. Thank you for your support. Chapter 3250. Lu Yin's expression changed drastically. Wu Tian and the rest were shocked. They knew what the one true God was going to do. He was going to use the last Corpse King transformation that Di Qiong had created at the cost of his life. Einherjar transformation. Di Qiong's Aries transformation had unimaginable power. His strength was no weaker than Lu Yin's. The transformation's power was almost the limit of a living being. If Di Qiong had not died and lost his mind, his godly power would have been absorbed by Lu Yin. Otherwise, even a corpse would not have been able to do anything to him. If Di Qiong was already like this, what would happen if the one true God used the Aries transformation? He was already much stronger than Di Qiong, be it in terms of physical strength or godly power. The one true God used the Aries transformation. Everyone was shocked. His powerful aura distorted the 6 paths of reincarnation. Lu Yin's eyelids twitched. The one true God's power had surpassed his. In the current universe, the strongest beings were Su Wang and Li Shou. However, Lu Yin's power had surpassed those two and was already close to the limit. At this moment, the one true God was the limit. He represented the limit of power. His power was not something that could be resisted by a human. The one true God punched forward, distorting the six paths of reincarnation and almost tearing it apart. He attacked again. No one doubted that he had the ability to tear the six paths of reincarnation apart. If he had this ability, why didn't he attack during the battle of the second calamity region? There must be a limit. The ancestor's words appeared in Lu Yin's mind again. There was no limit in the universe. If there was a limit, there must be a price to pay. He could not tell what price the one true God would pay, but he knew that the six paths of reincarnation could not hold on for much longer. Wu Tian and the rest could not attack. They did not dare to enter the six paths of reincarnation. Otherwise, they would be courting death if they faced the one true God directly. They could only watch. In the sky, the dark red screen made everyone look red. It was like hell. The Grand Heavenly Venerate stood up and calmly watched the one true God attack. With my life, I sacrifice the six paths of reincarnation. As soon as he finished speaking, the sequence particles around the Grand Heavenly Venerate flew toward the six paths of reincarnation. At the same time, the astral source and her ancestral world's reincarnation were also scattered. Waves of power flew toward the six paths of reincarnation. Her face was pale and she was about to collapse. The only true God shouted, "Tai Hong, do you really want to die?" The Grand Empyrean's voice echoed across the world. "Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. I know it's impossible to pass the bitter adversity, but no matter what, I'll drag you down until you die. At the very least, you won't be able to pass the bitter adversity." The one true God slammed his palm at her. The Grand Empyrean was like a small boat in a storm and she spat out blood. The veil fell off, revealing a beautiful face. There was blood at the corner of her mouth. Her smile was like a withered flower that could wither at any moment. "Eternal, you must have paid a heavy price." Of course, the price he had to pay was not small. Otherwise, he would have made a move long ago. The only true deity was just about to continue attacking when the surface of his body cracked open inch by inch. Blood spurted out and scattered in all directions. Attack! The ancestor of the past, the ancient god, the forgotten ruins god, and the arrow god all attacked the Grand Empyrean. The Grand Empyrean couldn't fight back at all and could only let them attack. Lu Yin's eyes turned cold as he rushed forward. Wu Tian and the others didn't hesitate and rushed into the six paths of reincarnation. "Scram!" the Grand Empyrean shouted. She turned around and glared at Lu Yin and the others. "Scram! Who do you think you are? This is a battle between me and Eternal. Do you have the right to interfere?" "Crazy woman, you're going to die!" Lu Yin shouted. The Grand Empyrean disdainfully said, "Even if I die, it's not up to you to save me. I don't owe your Lu family anything and never will. Also, you want to kill me with just these pieces of trash? Ridiculous. Who do you think I am? I'm Tai Hong, someone from the primordial era in the origin space. I'm an elder of the six paths of the three realms. Even they have to call me senior. Do I need you to save me?" Frem. Attacks fell like raindrops. The Grand Empyrean's back was facing Lu Yin and the others as she faced the attacks head-on. Blood dyed the sky red. "Eternal, you can't get rid of me. Don't even think about leaving. This is my bitter adversity. No one can interfere." The Grand Empyrean's voice echoed throughout the world. Lu Yin had never felt that this crazy woman shouldn't die. She had her own beliefs and didn't need to be responsible for others. The only true God's face was red as he panted. It was obvious that he had paid a price. He gritted his teeth. "If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. I'll let Absolute Beginning watch you die." With that, he clenched his fingers and pointed at the Black Mother Tree. "Rise." A huge force pulled up the Black Mother Tree that connected the heavens and earth. The Black Mother Tree carried the six paths of reincarnation realm and turned into a dark red light that shot into the sky. Lu Yin quickly stopped it. The soil condensed into a land that pressed down. At the same time, Wu Tian, Hongyan Mavis and the others all attacked. Lu Yuan also appeared and blocked it with the God Sealing Catalog. It was useless as all the attacks were blocked by the dark red light. Lu Yuan's expression changed. True God Heaven Switching Technique. The Black Mother Tree carried the six paths of reincarnation realm and disappeared without a trace within the True God Heaven Switching Technique. Lu Yin and the others all attacked the True God Heaven Switching Technique, but they couldn't do anything to it. So, this is the True God Heaven Switching Technique. Even a primordial realm expert will be trapped for a while. Lu Yuan's expression was heavy as he looked in the direction of the Black Mother Tree. What happened? The guardians of the Calamity region took turns, and Lu Yuan just happened to be absent. But whether he was there or not, the result wouldn't change. The only true god who had reached the limit of power was no match for him. No one could stop him. Lu Yin told Lu Yuan what had happened. Lu Yuan's expression was ugly. That crazy woman is still the same. But fortunately you didn't go in or you really would have died. Don't worry. Even an eternal at the limit couldn't break the 6 paths of reincarnation realm. The 6 paths of reincarnation realm will definitely be able to seal him for a while. Now no one knows where they went. Wu Tian looked up. They went to Immemorial City. Lu Yuan frowned and his heart sank. This was the worst-case scenario. The only true god had gone to Immemorial City, which would be a decisive force. Lu Yin and the others were still trapped in the Calamity region. Unless they broke the true god heaven-switching technique, no one would be able to leave. They should have gone to Immemorial City. We need to break the true god heaven-switching technique as soon as possible. Otherwise, if Immemorial City is broken, this universe will be finished, Hongyan Mavis said. Lu Yin knew that this was even more terrifying. Once Immemorial City was broken, the sequence cords would all be broken and this universe would be rebooted. That would be a disaster for humanity. When he thought of this, he punched at the true god heaven-switching technique, but it was still useless. Currently, the people trapped in the Calamity region were Lu Yin, Lu Yuan, Wu Tian, Hongyan Mavis, Wood God, Celestial Champion, Jade and Yao. They could be considered as more than half of the above heaven sex forces. The most troublesome thing was that the Calamity region could only be entered but not exited. If anyone tried to enter, they would be sealed and no one would be able to escape. Lu Yin and the others thought of many methods, but none of them could be separated from the true god heaven-switching technique. The true god heaven-switching technique is one of Eternity's 3 ultimate techniques. It surrounds the entire spacetime with divine power, and no power can break through it unless Master is here. Wu Tian was solemn as he stared at the sky, trying to find the technique's weakness. Lu Yin took out the landscape painting stone. What about the mirage? We can't go there, Lu Yuan said. The entire spacetime has been sealed by divine power. We can't even tear through the void, let alone these specks of dust. There's one way to break through. Wu Tian looked at Lu Yin. Absorb that divine power. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. That's right, I can absorb the divine power of the true god heaven-switching technique. Hongyan Mavis shook her head. Do you think it's that easy to absorb a technique? Unless you can see through it. No matter what, let's give it a try. Lu Yin leapt up and went under the true god heaven-switching technique, attempting to absorb the divine power. At the same time, above the sequence, the immemorial city that was burning in flames shook violently. After a fierce battle, figures returned to the city one after another, panting heavily. Awesome, haha Kujia, you're really resilient. You took 5 sequence laws head-on and didn't lose. Su Wangtian sighed in admiration as he stood on top of the city wall. Below him was a blazing inferno. His bare feet were stepping on 2 slippers as he felt extremely carefree. Not far away, Kujia praised, Senior Su's slippers are really powerful. They kicked 2 corpse kings to death. Is that a weapon? Su Wangtian's expression turned awkward as he glanced at the slippers. On the other side, old Zhong too arrived. I'm old. Can't you guys wait for me? If not for the fact that I can still move, I would have died outside. Su Wangtian rolled his eyes. Old Zhong too, your act of pretending to be old is useless. Old Zhong too laughed and stroked his beard. Ancestor Su, do the slippers fit? You scolded the person who stole your slippers quite harshly. Su Wangan was speechless. He even stole my slippers. Scolding him is already considered light. Kujia was curious but did not ask. Ever since he was brought to Immemorial City by the giant tree during the Second Battle of Calamity Realm, he had participated in many battles here and experienced many battles. There was nothing else here but endless battles. Although this period of time was not long, he saw all kinds of enemies. Some of them were not weaker than him. There were too many experts hidden in the Eternal Race's bone boats. He did not know where they came from. Old Zhong too laughed. Ancestor Su, what's going on between you and that big sister? Tell me. Su Wangtian raised his eyebrows and cursed his bad luck. He did not expect Netherworld to come. He had offended her too harshly last time. On the other side, Kong Tianzhao looked at the sword hilt in a daze. It was still not enough. Just a little bit more. This time he wanted to break through earlier than Jiang Feng. White Cloud City had its own path of cultivation. Others might not be able to see their path clearly. And here he looked into the distance. This was the place he dreamed of. If he did not die here, he would break through here. Big Sister was in the opposite direction of Su Wangtian. There was no other way. They had to separate them. Otherwise, they would have internal strife before the battle with the eternal race. Chui glanced at Big Sister and was very cautious. He was afraid that she would rush to the other side of Immemorial City to find trouble with Su Wangtian. This was not the first time. Chapter 3251. Thinking back to the tree's previous arrival, Immemorial City grew excited. Every time the tree arrived, it would bring a few experts to deal with the Eternals, and the Eternals would try their best to stop it. They would attack the tree from the outskirts of Immemorial City. The tree had failed several times and was unable to approach Immemorial City. The people it brought with it were either killed or crippled. This time, however, things were different. The Eternals who had attacked the tree had all been destroyed. This time, the tree had brought several experts, including the unkillable Withered, the sword expert Kong Tianzhao, and the irascible Netherworld ancestor. The Eternals had miscalculated, and the primordial thunder locust was among them. As for Magician, he had been killed the moment he entered Immemorial City. He had been tossed into the sea of fire, and there was no place for him here. The arrival of these experts excited Immemorial City, and they also brought good news. In the outside world, the Eternals were being suppressed by the above heaven, and all of this was due to one person. Lu Yin. The endless war in Immemorial City seemed endless, but now they could see that the Eternals had reached their end. The primordial thunder locust was in a more miserable state. Just like Awakener, who had participated in the Chosen of Gods, he had been captured by the giant hand within Immemorial City. The hand had resisted the primordial thunder locust's thunderous might and taken somewhere else. Kong Tianzhao was stunned. The primordial thunder locust was not weak. Even White Cloud City could not do anything to it, but someone had managed to capture it so easily. Of course, he later realized that he had overestimated the hand's owner. After capturing the primordial thunder locust, that person had been heavily injured. In any case, there was more than one powerhouse in Immemorial City, and any one of them could change the situation in the outside world. There were also many experts on the Eternals' bone boats that could fight against Immemorial City. In particular, the bone boats had an unending stream that left Immemorial City helpless. Immemorial City was a paradise for warriors. The arrival of Big Sis and the others had given Immemorial City the upper hand. They had fought their way out and continuously killed the Eternal Corpse Kings. They had even seen the bone boats several times. Now everyone in Immemorial City was waiting for the above heaven to arrive and fight the Eternals to the death. No matter how intense the battle outside was, this was the only place where the final battle would take place. Finally, in the direction of Immemorial City, an old man wearing a pointed hat had a complicated expression. His name was Bobber, and he was an instructor of the Nine-Star Civilization. He had sensed it the moment Kakavin used the Nine-Star Civilization to restart death. At that time, he had thought that the Nine-Star Civilization no longer existed. Fortunately, Big Sister and the others had arrived and brought him news of the Nine-Star Civilization. The Nine-Star Civilization was still around, and there was an expert who could use the Nine-Star reboot. That was enough. The final battle between the humans and the Eternals was about to begin. He was glad that he could witness that moment. Only then would the Nine Stars be reactivated. He had been waiting for that day for a long time. Around the primeval city, flames burned, never to be extinguished. On the city wall, everyone was waiting. They were waiting for another opportunity to kill their way out. Now that the humans had the upper hand, they did not care whether they lived or died in the following battle. All they wanted was to feel refreshed. In Primeval City, everyone's greatest joy was gambling. They gambled on which sequence law they would die under. Here no one was afraid of death. Not long after, the people of Primordial City saw a spectacle. The endless sequence particles that filled the surrounding starry sky were pushed out in one direction, as if a behemoth had appeared. The expressions of the people on the city wall in that direction changed drastically. Is that the Mother Tree? No, it's the Dark Mother Tree of the Eternals. Everyone be careful, Big Sister shouted. The huge Dark Mother Tree was dragged by an invisible force toward Primeval City. Because the Dark Mother Tree was too huge, it pushed away the endless sequence particles. It carried a strong pressure as if it was about to crash into Primeval City. One by one the experts arrived at the city wall. Their breathing stopped. Mr. Mu walked out. Why would the Dark Mother Tree of the Eternals come here? Wasn't the Eternals completely suppressed by the Above Heaven sect? Who had the ability to pull out the Dark Mother Tree? And they saw it. On the Dark Mother Tree, the group of Eternals, especially the one true God, faced Primeval City and Mr. Mu. Mr. Mu, we meet again, the one true God said, his voice spreading throughout Primeval City. Everyone in Primeval City heard him. Underground, primogenitor Tai Chu frowned. Eternals? He had actually come. On the city wall, Mr. Mu looked across. Eternals, you actually came to Primeval City. Have you given up on the Calamity Zone? The one true God sighed. You took in the most outstanding disciple in history and chased me out of the Calamity Zone. I had nowhere to go, so I could only come to Primeval City to fight to the death with you. Just as Tai Chu said, Primeval City will become the final battlefield. Where's little Seven? Big Sister shouted. The one true God didn't answer. He slowly moved aside. Behind him, the area blocked by the ancient gods and ancestor Tai Chu dispersed, revealing the Grand Empyrean. In Primeval City, some people's expressions changed. Grand Empyrean? Tai Hong? Mr. Mu's pupils constricted. Tai Hong. Underground, Tai Chu looked up and saw through Primeval City. He saw the Grand Empyrean being beaten miserably by the one true God and the others. His gaze was complicated. Tai Hong. The one true God praised. I always thought that Tai Hong was an unreasonable woman, but I have to admit that her persistence surpassed everything. Perhaps among all the experts who passed Calamity, she was the closest to success. She used her life to trap me in the 6 paths of reincarnation. I admire her. Mr. Mu, Tai Chu, none of you can compare to her. On Primeval City's city wall, Mr. Mu's expression was ugly. Primeval City had been fighting for so many years, but no one had ever seen Mr. Mu like this. The Tai Hong that appeared in front of Mr. Mu was completely different from the arrogant and insufferably arrogant woman from before. That woman was arrogant and looked down on everything. She didn't put anyone in her eyes and thought that she could surpass everyone, becoming the first existence to step into the eternal life realm. She gave pointers to the 3 worlds and 6 Daoists and discussed the Dao with him in absolute beginning. At that time she was so arrogant. Now her hair was a mess, her body was covered in blood and her face was pale. She had endured torture, but her eyes were still so bright and lofty. Figures appeared beside the Black Mother Tree. They were the experts on the Eternal Race's bone ship. One of them was called Yuan Qi and he challenged Mr. Mu. He was a peerless expert. Yuan Qi sized up the Grand Empyrean and exclaimed, Tai Hong? You actually became like this? Ah, Tai Hong, to think that you would have such a day. I said that you would be miserable in the future. Ah. Another voice rang out, Tai Hong? I think I have heard of her before. She is an expert. Is she that woman? She is very ordinary. Tear apart that woman's clothes. Living beings should be in their most primitive form. Face us in a perverted state. I want her bones. In the most intense battlefield in the universe, where the strongest experts from both sides gathered, the Grand Empyrean was like an object being appraised and discussed. The voices of the eternal race constantly entered the Grand Empyrean's ears. The corner of the Grand Empyrean's mouth curled up, and her eyes became colder and more arrogant. A bunch of trash. Old man Mu, what is that look in your eyes? No matter what, I, Tai Hong, will not be pitted by others. I will kill the eternal race. Tai Chu cannot take it away and neither can you. This is my misfortune. If you cannot stop the other eternal race members, then it is because you are not capable. After I survive this misfortune and destroy the eternal race, all of you will have to worship me. Yuan Qi raised his eyebrows. Arrogant. You are about to die and still dare to be so stubborn. With that he waved his hand. His power penetrated the 6 paths of reincarnation world and hit the Grand Empyrean's shoulder, cracking it. Someone on the side was distressed. Old man Yuan Qi, don't hit her bones. They're useful. I want to implant her bones. Hit somewhere else. Look at her beautiful face. The Grand Empyrean did not even look at them. In her eyes there was only the one true God. No matter how much damage she suffered, she could not let the 6 paths of reincarnation world break. This was her persistence and her way of fighting. The one true god looked at Immemorial City. I have not been here for a long time. Taichu, if Tai Hong dies in front of you, what will you do? A voice came from the underground of Immemorial City. I will win. Tai Hong was furious. Nonsense. Taichu, I will definitely live longer than you. Don't even think about winning. Don't even think about winning once. The one true god waved his hand. Take down Immemorial City. Beside him, Ancient God and the others stepped forward and charged towards Immemorial City. Around them, Yuan Qi and the others also charged towards Immemorial City. Within Immemorial City, Mr. Mu was stern. Everyone, all of the Eternal's forces are gathered here. Focus on defense in this battle. Do not advance rashly. Wait for reinforcements. A terrifying battle erupted. Stray particles constantly spread out and Immemorial City shook. Bone ships appeared as figures charged towards Immemorial City. With Immemorial City's current strength, it was impossible to stop the Eternals. The Eternals had gained 2 primordial realm experts, the Ancestor and the Ancient God, as well as by Wuxian, the Arrow God, and the Forgetful Ruins God. Immemorial City was at a disadvantage in terms of absolute numbers of experts. Fortunately, the one true God was still trapped in the 6 paths of reincarnation world, or the Eternals would have already won this battle. Now, the only thing that could truly determine victory was whether the above heavens could provide reinforcements. Lu Yin landed in the second disaster zone and sighed. He had failed as there was no way for him to directly absorb the God Force from the true God Sky Split technique. This technique was practically flawless, and trying to break through it was as difficult as trying to break out of a sealed cage. Another person arrived. It was Lu Tianyi. This was the most disgusting thing about the true God heaven switching technique. One could enter but not leave. It made human experts enter like moths to a flame. Lu Yin had no doubt that the longer they were trapped, the more human experts would enter. Lu Tianyi felt helpless. He had never thought that something like this would happen. It's impossible to see the true God heaven switching technique from the outside world. The Eternals must have created this technique to trick people. Hongyan Mavis gritted her teeth. Lu Yuan said, everyone, no matter what, let's work together and try to break through it. No matter how long it takes, we can't just let the Eternals defeat Immemorial City. Once Immemorial City is defeated and the bone ships descend, will be finished. Chapter 3252. Lu Yin's heart sank. The strength of the bone galleys was comparable to that of Primeval City, and how many human experts were gathered there. Once the Eternals joined forces with the bone galleys, even the current above heaven would not be able to withstand them. Let me try again. Not long after, Lu Yin descended once more, but there was nothing he could do unless he learned the true God heaven switching technique. Right, he looked around at the land of the Zone of E and saw that it was crisscrossed with a river of divine power. It was said that the river of divine power contained the 3 ultimate techniques of the true God. But what about now? If Lu Yuan and the others joined forces to attack the true God heaven switching technique, they would definitely be able to break through it, but it would take a very long time. It was obvious that they could not withstand it for that long. Even if Lu Yin joined them, he would only be able to shorten the time, but they would still not be able to withstand it. With no other choice, Lu Yin released the starry sky from his heart. It spread out continuously, gradually enveloping the second zone of E and continuing to expand. With his current strength, it was not impossible for the starry sky from his heart to spread to the 6th zone of E. He wanted to see if he could find the 3 ultimate techniques of the true God. He had already learned the true God's freedom technique, but he had not been able to cultivate it. There were still 2 more. The starry sky from his heart continued to expand, and the stars in the zone of E rotated, bringing the dusky zone of E into the starry sky. He could not find the 2nd zone of E, the 3rd and the 1st. Next, the 4th zone of E. Lu Yin's eyes widened and his body disappeared. Far away from the 2nd zone of E, in the depths of the 4th zone of E, Wei Shu was curled up, not daring to move. His eyes were closed and the power in his body had completely dissipated. He had fallen from the progenitor realm and become inconspicuous. This was his method of self-preservation. If not for this, he would have died long ago. The above heaven sect and the Eternals had suddenly started fighting, and he had not even been able to escape. He had thought that the battle would take a long time, but it had suddenly erupted. When the battle had begun, he had immediately decided to hide underground, not intending to fight at all. During the fierce battle, the ground of the Zone of E had cracked, and the Black Mother Tree had swayed and even tilted. His heart trembled at the sight, and he was glad that he had not fought. Everywhere in the sky and on the ground were battlefields. He had been waiting for the moment when victory and defeat would be decided. He had believed that the Eternals would win because of their deep foundation, but the result had left him in despair. The Eternals had been defeated. When the Eternals were defeated and the one true God and the others were trapped in the 6 paths of reincarnation world, Wuxia made a decision to disperse his strength and drop out of the progenitor realm to protect himself. At the beginning of the war he could not escape. No one could escape from the Calamity region. After the war ended he still could not escape. He was certain that once he tore through the void, those terrifying human experts would immediately discover him and crush him like a bug. That was for sure. By dispersing his cultivation and hiding underground, other than being able to protect himself, there was another benefit, which was to search for the 3 ultimate techniques of the true gods. The river of divine power had been drawn away, but he knew that the 3 ultimate skills of the true gods were not hidden in the river of divine power, but in the river itself. This was something he had learned after joining the Eternals for so many years and making so many friends. He was still waiting. He was waiting for the moment the Eternals were completely defeated and the humans won. He was waiting for the moment the land of disaster became a wasteland. Then he would begin his search. No one would compete with him. It was very likely that he would find the 3 ultimate techniques of the true gods. With that he could cultivate them again and become a top expert. Progenitor realm? In the past it was very impressive, but now it was no longer necessary. He had cultivated the 3 ultimate techniques of the true gods. These techniques could even make a half-ancestor invincible. Just look at Dao Lord Lu. What kind of battles had he participated in when he was a half-ancestor? Now that he had broken through, he was one of the most invincible powerhouses in the universe. Lu Yin did not plan to compete with him, but even if he could not compare to him, he was still better than him. He slept for countless years, waiting for an opportunity. It was not like this was the first time he had done something like this. He slept peacefully. Wuxia did not even think that he would be discovered. The war was already over, and no one would come to the desolate land of the 4th Calamity region. However, when a dim light illuminated him, he opened his eyes and stared blankly in front of him. A smile that was uglier than crying appeared on his face. Lu, Master Lu. Wuxia would never have imagined that Lu Yin would personally find him. He had considered the possibility that he would be found, but would this invincible universe's Master Lu have a chance? There was no need. There was really no need. He was just an ant. Lu Yin had also not expected to find this guy. Wuxia was a prodigy in the 4th Calamity region. Lu Yin did not see him in battle, but he was good at finding true gods. He had actually drawn 5 maps of the Calamity region's god power lakes. No one in the Eternals was as good at making friends as Wuxia. Lu Yin looked down at Wuxia. You really know how to hide. Wuxia trembled and fell to his knees. He was in despair. Master Lu, I am just an ant. I have never done anything to harm humans. Master Lu, please do not kill me. Please give me a chance to turn over a new leaf. I beg you. Lu Yin did not have the time to talk nonsense with him. Where are the 3 true god ultimate techniques? Wuxia was stunned and looked at Lu Yin in confusion. True God's 3 ultimate techniques? You have been searching. Do you have any leads? Lu Yin asked. He had searched through the 6 calamity regions with his heart, but he could not find anything. Wuxia blinked. This I do not know. Lu Yin narrowed his eyes. Wuxia saw Lu Yin's expression darken and hurriedly said, Although I cannot find it, I know how to find it. Speak. Dig. Dig. Yes. Legend has it that Master Su Jin's 3 ultimate techniques were dug out. A long time ago something happened in the 2nd Calamity region. All the corpse kings, including the humans of the Eternal Kingdom, dug out the soil. Master Su Jin lifted the river of divine power and dug section by section. In the end he did not find anything. But now we know that Master Su Jin cultivated the true God's freedom technique. He must have dug it out then. And Master Di Qiong's ultimate technique was bestowed by the only true God. Lu Yin frowned. Di Qiong did not cultivate the ultimate technique. Di Qiong had died in his hands. If he had cultivated the ultimate technique, how could he not use it? Wei Shu's face turned pale. I do not know about this, but I am sure that if we want to find the ultimate technique, we can only rely on digging. The river of divine power is gone. Do you think the ultimate technique is still there? Lu Yin asked. He did not have much hope. Wei Shu was certain. Yes, it is. Please believe me. As long as we dig out all the rivers in the 6 calamity regions, we will definitely find the ultimate technique. In the river. It should be. Lu Yin's heart was enveloped by the 6 calamity regions. A map of the river of divine power appeared in his mind. Even though the terrain of the calamity regions had been destroyed due to the war, he could still roughly find it. Surging energy. The energy shook the 6 calamity regions at the same time, causing Lu Yuan and the rest to look over. They did not understand what Lu Yin was doing. Wei Shu felt a tremor beneath his feet. The river beside him was torn apart by an invisible energy. Not only that, but the entire 4th calamity region's river was torn apart. It was as if a giant python had rushed out of the 4th calamity region. He knew that it was not just the 4th calamity region. All 6 calamity regions were in the same state. All the rivers of divine power had been torn apart. Lu Yin suddenly looked in a direction and disappeared. Wei Shu's entire body went limp. He felt bitter. He should have found it. It should have been his. In the 5th calamity region, within an unremarkable broken river, a small stone attracted Lu Yin's attention. When the stone was pulled out of the river, it actually flew towards the divine power planet in his heart. He was obviously attracted by the divine power. Lu Yin grabbed the stone and looked at it. After a while he crushed the stone. It was the true God's freedom technique. It seemed that only the true God's freedom technique had been passed down from the true God's 3 ultimate techniques. The other 2 techniques did not exist. It made sense. How could the only true God allow the true God heaven switching technique to remain in the calamity region? Wouldn't that give others a way to break the technique? The logic was simple, but Lu Yin still held on to hope. In the end, he only found the true God's freedom technique. He returned to the 2nd calamity region and watched as Lu Yuan and the rest continuously attacked the true God heaven switching technique. There was only one way left: breakthrough. When he broke through the mortal ancestors' world and the unbounded ancestors' world, he had caused a huge commotion. He hoped that breaking through again would cause enough of a commotion to break through the true God heaven switching technique. Lu Yin had Lu Yuan and the rest stop. He stood far away and looked up. This time he planned to break through the wordless heaven book. Without the mortal ancestor break and the unbounded ancestor break, Lu Yin would not have attempted to break through the wordless heaven book. Even now he did not know what other uses the wordless heaven book had besides blocking the sequence laws and writing names that had been expelled from spacetime. He also did not have a clear direction to break through. But would he have a direction after a while? Since that was the case, he might as well break through and see what the wordless heaven book would become. As for the flowing light, Lu Yin wanted to save it for last. It was the power of time, and he hoped that one day he would be able to rely on it to go against the flow of time. The wordless heaven book appeared and Lu Yin looked up. Golden light sprinkled on his face, making him feel warm. Looking at the dark red sky, he did not know what kind of calamity the wordless heaven book would attract. He had never wished for his calamity to be as great as possible. Unfortunately, if he had brought along the mortal ancestors' world's calamity, he might have been able to break through the true God heaven switching technique. In the distance, Lu Yuan and the rest looked at Lu Yin with solemn expressions. What kind of calamity will be attracted after being recognized by the primordial space? Hongyan Mavis did not understand, as she had never been recognized by the primordial space. Since ancient times, only the primogenitors had been recognized and the second had been Lu Yin. At most, they controlled a single continent. Lu Yuan's expression was solemn. I don't know either. We were only recognized by a single continent, and we did not break through with the wordless heaven book like him. This is the first time, and Master might not even know. Wu Tian's expression was solemn. Cultivate the heart. Lu Yuan and Hongyan Mavis looked at Wu Tian, not understanding what he meant. Wu Tian's ability to enlighten all living beings was equivalent to being recognized by the primordial space, but he had never fought for that power. Chapter 3253. I don't know if I'm right or not. If there are gains, then there are losses. Using the wordless heavenly book to break through might not lead to a great calamity, but the threat to him might be greater than any other calamity. It all depends on what he thinks. Everyone discussed. Gradually, A phantom appeared outside the true God heaven switching technique. Lu Yin saw it. Was that a parallel universe? Was it the same as breaking through in the mortal world? Impossible. How could two completely different ancestral realms have the same calamity? In fact, outside of the primordial space, most parallel universes did not have any calamities when breaking through to the progenitor realm. Lu Yin did not walk the astral path, and even in the primordial space he might not have encountered any calamities. However, he had walked his own path, and this path would lead to calamities everywhere. The more unique one's path was, the more difficult the calamities would be to bear. Lu Yin looked at the phantom outside the true God heaven switching technique. The heavier the calamities, the better. It would be best if they could break through the true God heaven switching technique. Gradually the phantom became clearer and clearer. Lu Yin's eyes widened. Was that the fifth mainland? Not only him but Lu Yuan and the others also saw it. The phantom was not a parallel universe but a fifth mainland. As the fifth mainland approached, it disappeared, and what appeared in front of them were countless people. They did not see Lu Yin's group at all. This was just a phantom, a mere phantom. Perhaps it was a scene that was happening in a certain location on the fifth mainland. The golden light still shone on Lu Yin's face, but as the figures became clearer he saw a different scene. He saw the ugliness of the human world, the scenes that could only happen in the dark corners of the world. Child, do it. Kill him and we'll be able to obtain that technique. But father, this person is a good person. He saved me. There are no good people in this world. Do it. Kill him. Kill him. My lord, this lowly one is innocent. This lowly one did not kill this family. Please investigate. If I say it's you, then it's you. There's no one else. It's useless to beg anymore. Unless what? Unless you have enough money to buy your life. My lord, this lowly one has an 80-year-old mother and a wife to support. Where would I get the money? Then it's you. Drag him out and execute him. My lord, please investigate. Well done, Lord Hui. Don't worry, young master. Only you and I know about this. I won't treat you unfairly. Now that I think about it, that little girl was really alluring. I killed her too early. Young master, I know a family whose young lady is even more alluring. Really? Hurry up and bring me there. Don't worry, I won't mistreat you. Young master, please. Welcome back, master. I have been in seclusion for 13 years. It has been hard on my disciples. To serve master, we disciples are willing to die 10,000 deaths. Since that's the case, there's one last thing I need my disciples to do. Master, please instruct me. Give it to me as a blood sacrifice. Master, please spare this disciple's life. This disciple doesn't want to die. Master, I'm hungry. Master, there's no other way. I've suffered from cultivation deviation and I can only exchange your blood for a technique. Rest in peace. 99,999 people are enough. I still need to recruit more disciples. How troublesome. Voices traveled into Lu Yin's ears and he heard them. He also saw the countless ugly sides of the world. Gradually, the golden light that shone on his face dimmed. Lu Yuan and the others stared at this scene. How could this be? Wu Tian's expression turned solemn. As expected, it's a tempering of the heart. The mortal world is full of evil and he has been recognized by time and space. The prayers of all living beings can become his strength, but there is also an evil side. Lu Yuan and the others only saw human figures, but what Lu Yin saw was a dark and cruel scene. The distortion of human nature and the depravity of the world's morals flooded into his mind and replaced all of his thoughts. The golden radiance dimmed and it was no longer warm. Instead, it became dark, lonely, and cold. More and more dark and strange things appeared before Lu Yin's eyes, and he couldn't see the light. All he could see were pairs of venomous and hateful eyes. It was as if he could see blood-stained arms grabbing at him, and it made it difficult for him to breathe. Why do you want to kill me? I saved him. Humans shouldn't be like this, they shouldn't be like this. I have a mother, a wife, and a son. How can I die? I didn't kill that family. How can I bear such a stain? How will my mother, wife, and son live? Master, we've treated you like a father and mother. Why are you like this? Is this human nature? If there's an afterlife, I don't want to be a human. The human heart is sinister, and even if I'm a human, I want to be the most evil person. I won't let the world betray me. If there's an afterlife, I want to be that young master. What's wrong with killing people? If there's an afterlife, I'll slaughter everyone. If there's an afterlife. The golden light around Lu Yin had almost completely dissipated. Countless voices and images filled his mind and he felt the worst pain in the world. He clutched his head and muttered to himself, if there's an afterlife, I'll be that young master. If there's an afterlife, I'll be that lord. If there's an afterlife, I'll be that master. I'll be that father and son who repaid kindness with enmity. Lu Yin raised his head to the sky and roared. Lu Yuan wanted to rush over, but he was stopped by Wu Tian. Don't go. He's the only one who can survive this situation. Since he has the support of countless people and has countless people praying for him, he has to bear the karma. It's something that neither you nor I can do anything about. Even if you help him this time, he'll still fall into the abyss next time. Lu Yuan's face was pale and he gritted his teeth. Little Seven, get through it. Get through it. The darkest thing in the world was human nature. The Eternals used emotions as their weakness and saw through human nature, which was why they had won. Lu Yin had survived calamity after calamity. Even if space-time overlapped and disappeared, even if there were endless calamities in the universe, he could still survive because he wasn't alone. He had too many people supporting him. Even if the parallel space-time wanted to crush him, there would be countless people supporting him, causing the primordial space to crash into the many parallel space-time. After enjoying the consequences, he had to bear the cause. Lu Yin knelt on one knee as sweat dripped down his face. His pupils dilated, but this wasn't something that could be suppressed by his battle prowess. As long as he was human, as long as there was right and wrong, good and evil, this pain would become even more obvious. The kinder a person was, the more evil they would be when they committed evil. Lu Yin had always stuck to his bottom line, but what he saw and heard at this moment had crossed that line. He seemed to have become that father and son, that young master, that lord and that master. Once he fell, he would be even more evil than these people. He would no longer be Lu Yin. This was what it meant to temper one's heart. Breaking through to ancestral break in the primordial space required one to temper one's heart. Lu Yin had broken through to ancestral break in the mortal era and had broken through to ancestral break countless times, but he had never encountered it. He had thought that it was just a calamity in the primordial space, but in reality, it had always been there waiting for him. He had become one of the thousands of evil people in the universe and he had done all kinds of evil. That calamity had mostly come from himself, and he had been unable to bring himself out of the abyss. That bottom line that he had always stuck to was like a rope that wanted to hang him to death. More and more voices rang out and more. Lu Yin closed his eyes for a moment before suddenly opening them again. He punched the ground, causing the earth to crack. Whether it's good or evil, this is human nature. I can enjoy the good side of human nature, but I can also face the evil side. So what if it's evil? So what if human nature is dark? I've always believed that the good in human nature outweighs the evil. I've seen too much beauty in the world. Family, love, friendship. I've seen fathers and sons die for humanity. I've seen husbands and wives die without regrets. I've seen heroes die on the battlefield but smile at the world. You want to replace the good in human nature with these sinister things? How preposterous. Disperse. With a furious roar, Lu Yin stood up and waved his right hand. The darkness dissipated and the light enveloped him. However, it was not enough. The deep darkness transformed into pairs of evil eyes that closed in on him, wanting to bury him. Lu Yin took a deep breath and looked up at the wordless heavenly book. He slowly said, I've received the prayers of all living beings. Whether it's good or evil, I'll listen to them all. I'm willing to use the good of all living beings to spend my entire life in order to transcend the boundless evil. Disperse. The wordless heavenly book's golden light suddenly erupted, piercing through the sky and the true God heaven switching technique. It shot towards the fifth mainland, the entire primordial space and even the Hexagon Society. Within the primordial space, everyone looked up at the golden light that had erupted from the depths of the universe. When they saw Lu Yin, they all bowed in excitement. Greetings, Pathmaster. Greetings, Pathmaster. Greetings, Pathmaster. I've received the prayers of all living beings. Whether it's good or evil, I'll listen to them all. I'm willing to use the good of all living beings to spend my entire life in order to transcend the boundless evil. I've received the prayers of all living beings. Whether it's good or evil, I'll listen to them all. I'm willing to use the good of all living beings to spend my entire life in order to transcend the boundless evil. I've received the prayers of all living beings. Whether it's good or evil, I'll listen to them all. I'm willing to use the good of all living beings to spend my entire life in order to transcend the boundless evil. Lu Yin's voice entered everyone's ears. Countless people trembled and knelt down. They faced Lu Yin and said, "Thank you, Pathmaster. Thank you, Pathmaster. Thank you, Pathmaster." At the bottom of the heavenly sex staircase, the cauldron became more solid. It flowed with brilliance and was slightly different from before. Humans could feel Lu Yin's intentions. The wordless heavenly book had brought about the evil of all living beings. However, evil was also a part of human nature. There was more good. Lu Yin was willing to bear the evil and resolve the boundless evil, redeeming people to do good. From the very beginning, Lu Yin was not that kind of person. Most of the time he would rather only care about himself. Redeeming people to do good had nothing to do with him, and he had never thought of doing it. However, now that he had reached this height, what he saw and what he had to bear was different. In the past, it could be said that he did not receive the kindness of all living beings. At most, he would protect humans as much as he could. This was his responsibility as a human. However, all living beings had protected him, and they would protect him even more in the future. He had to bear this responsibility. At this moment, Lu Yin was sacred. His light enveloped the entire Hexagon sect. Everyone could feel it. Even the immemorial ancient city battlefield could feel the warmth brought by that light. For a moment, the Eternals were stunned. Chapter 32:54. The only true God's expression grew increasingly gloomy. Lu Yin had obtained the omniscient protection and had absorbed the Black Mother Tree's God force. Lu Yin had always been able to challenge the only true God's bottom line, and now that he had obtained the support of the omniscient protection, this threat had been pushed to the peak. However, it didn't matter. He couldn't break through the true divinity sky-changing technique. Even if Lu Yin could reach that step, the human race was already gone. What could he do? In the second zone of calamity, the wordless heavenly book disappeared, and the golden light dissipated. Everything returned to normal. Lu Yin stood in place with a puzzled expression. He was sure that the wordless heavenly book had broken through the progenitor realm, but there was no difference from before. What was the difference? Or could he not feel the difference? Looking up, the phantom image in the origin space was fading away. The calamity had disappeared, but he didn't seem to have gained anything. He even made a great vow to turn people to good. Thinking about this, he had a headache. How could he do that? He wasn't very kind himself. As for breaking through the true divinity sky-changing technique, it was even more impossible. At this time, Grand Elder Shan Gu entered the second zone of calamity. Since the battle in the Mirage domain, although he had recovered from his injuries, he had lost the power of the Heavenly King card statue. His strength had declined greatly, and he had been trying new cards in the Lost Clan. In the previous battle, his mission was to protect the remaining Lost Clan, so he didn't participate in the battle in the second zone of calamity. He didn't expect to appear now. Pathmaster. Lu Yin looked at Grand Elder Shan Gu and suddenly thought of something. His eyes lit up. Grand Elder, why are you here? Grand Elder Shan Gu said, I have something to discuss with Pathmaster. It's about the Eternal Darkness card. Lu Yin looked at Grand Elder Shan Gu deeply. I also have something to discuss with you. Me. Grand Elder Shan Gu was puzzled. Lu Yuan, Hongyan Mavis and the others approached. Shao Qi, did the wordless heavenly book succeed in breaking through the progenitor realm? Lu Yin nodded and frowned. Although it succeeded, it didn't break through the true divinity sky-changing technique. I have another way. Then he looked at Grand Elder Shan Gu. If I'm not wrong, Grand Elder is looking for me has something to do with that card, right? Grand Elder Shan Gu said, Pathmaster is right. It is indeed related to that card. Since that's the case, I'd like to receive the card here. He was naturally referring to the ancient card that the Lost Clan had announced to the outside world. In reality, it was not an ancient card at all. Ancient cards corresponded to the primordial realm, and Lu Yuan himself was a primordial realm expert. Now that Eternal Darkness and Celestial King were both primordial realm cards, there was no point in having another ancient card. What that card really represented was the power to protect the Lost Clan, escape from the omnipotent existence of their universe, and even give that existence a blow. That card represented at least the bitter adversity realm, which was the same level as the primogenitor, the one true god and the Grand Empyrean or even higher. Lu Yin hadn't thought of using that card to break through the true god sky switching technique until he saw Great Elder Shan Gu. Of course, even if he had thought of it before, it would have been useless as he couldn't control the card himself. Great Elder Shan Gu was puzzled. Here. Not easy to guide. Of course, if you want to pull the card, you have to wait until the upper 3 stages. When the upper 3 stages is opened, that is the time to pull the card. This is not the Lost Clan, we can't open the upper 3 stages. Great Elder Dangu said helplessly. Lu Yin's heart sank. Was it useless? Isn't that the Lost Clan? Mu Shen raised his head and looked at the starry sky phantom. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the sky. It should be Lu Yin's heavenly word. The wordless heavenly book was the first to appear. Now that the tribulation had passed, the first to disappear was the human figure, followed by the 5th continent, and then the primordial space. Just like when the tribulation had first appeared, the primordial space had first appeared, then the 5th continent and finally the human figures. It was like a curtain that could be stretched. Now this curtain was stretched to the origin space and the Lost Clan was connected to the origin space. Here with everyone's strength they could really see the Lost Clan in the vast phantom. Lu Yin looked at Great Elder Shan Gu. Great Elder Shan Gu looked at the starry sky phantom. He couldn't understand why the origin space's shadow would appear here. He didn't come because Lu Yin had used the wordless heavenly book to break through the primogenitor, but he was originally going to come. He just happened to appear and heard Lu Yin's words. Now, looking at the origin space's phantom, his expression was stern. Let me try. Since I can see the Lost Clan, it doesn't mean that I can't open the upper 3 stages. Great Elder, the survival of the human race depends on this line. You must open it. Hongyan Mavis reminded him. She actually didn't know about the Lost Clan, but Lu Yin's idea was very likely to succeed. This sentence increased the pressure on Great Elder Shan Gu. He didn't know what had happened, but he knew it was very important when he saw Lu Yin and the others' expressions. With the Heavenly King card in the air, Great Elder Shan Gu could no longer borrow the power of any statue, but the Heavenly King card itself was not damaged. It could still resist the power of the primordial realm to a certain extent. Although it couldn't attack, it was enough to scare people, but it was obviously not enough for him. This time he came to Lu Yin to ask Lu Yin to give him the eternal darkness. Anyway, Lu Yin didn't really need it, or to help him upgrade another card to ensure the power of the Lost Clan. He didn't care too much about it, but he cared about the Lost Clan. Tianxi had slaughtered the Lost Clan. Although he didn't participate in the war against the Guardian of the Four Directions, he was still angry at the bottom of his heart. After all, he was a powerhouse who had participated in the final battle of a universe. He had seen the omnipotent existence. There was nothing that Great Elder Shan Gu was afraid of. What he lacked was only power. Ancestor, it's an emergency. Please open the first 3 sections in advance. Please open the gate. Great Elder Shan Gu waved his hand. The Heavenly King card seemed to penetrate the sky and disappear from this universe. Lu Yin and the others watched. The Heavenly King card did not leave the range of the True God Sky switching technique. Outside the True God Sky switching technique, the spacetime of the Lost Clan that was connected to the origin space shook. Then an indescribable feeling appeared. It was as if the air they breathed had an additional taste. And this feeling could be felt by those in the origin space. The universe had an additional taste. The stronger the powerhouse, the more they would feel this. Great Elder Shan Gu's face turned pale. Sect Master, the Heavenly King card can only open the gate for half an hour at most. Lu Yin stepped forward with a solemn expression. Thank you. Everyone stepped back. Lu Yin stepped forward alone and slowly rose into the air. It was as if he had just broken through to the progenitor realm. No one could help him. He was already standing at the peak of the universe. In Immemorial City, Lu Yin's voice reached everyone's ears. It made the one true God more and more fearful. The Eternal Clan's attack on Immemorial City also became more and more fierce. The bone ship collided with Immemorial City. Primordial Origin carried a bell on his back. Loud sounds shook the starry sky, pushing away the sequence particles. Only Mr. Mu's flute could block it. A colossal giant walked out of Immemorial City. He was the one who attacked with the arm. He was the ancestor of the colossal giants. He had captured Qi and suppressed the ancient thunder locust. Now he faced the bone ship and charged forward furiously. On the Eternal Clan's side, the ancient god appeared. The realm of gods erupted with a gray color, replacing the starry sky. He struck the ancestor of the colossal giants with a palm. The ancestor of the colossal giants reached out to grab the ancient god at the same time. They collided outside the city walls, suppressing the flames. The tremendous destructive power tore through the void, forming absolute darkness that spread out in all directions. The ancestor of the colossal giant's palm shattered. He hurriedly pulled it back. Who is it? The ancient god raised his hand. The Hell Suppression Arena. Compared to before, the Hell Suppression Arena was now a dark gray color. It was simple and ancient, shocking the ancestor of the colossal giants. He was also in the primordial realm and had fought with primordial origin before. They had fought for countless years in Immemorial City, and almost no Eternal Clan member could face him head-on. Now that the ancient god had injured him with a single palm strike, his expression changed. Chui appeared. De Chong, are you still not enlightened? The ancient god looked at Chui calmly. What do you mean by enlightened? Let's see how long Immemorial City can last. No one will come to help you. They can't break through the true god heaven switching technique. The humans are finished. With that, he disappeared and reappeared in front of Chui, directly attacking. Chui sighed. Even if Immemorial City is destroyed, the Eternal Clan won't have it easy. The people of Immemorial City are not afraid of death. Chui, you can't stop me. Then I'll break through to the primordial realm. Master warned me not to step into the primordial realm unless I have no other choice. Now the time has come. With that, Su Wangtian kicked the ancient god from the side. The ancient god raised his arm to block, but Su Wangtian's kick knocked him back. The ancient god was shocked as he looked at the slippers on Su Wangtian's feet. Wasn't that Lu Yin's weapon? Su Wangtian belonged to the third mainland, and the ancient god had seen him before. However, it was impossible for him to have noticed the slippers, so he had never thought that Lu Yin's slippers were related to Su Wangtian. Senior Chui, you finally thought it through. Hurry up, I can't hold on any longer. Su Wangtian shouted. Immemorial City was being attacked by the Eternal Clan from all sides. Experts died one after another, their blood staining the walls as flames continued to burn their corpses. The ancestor of the past, the Arrow God, and other experts appeared, suppressing the people of Immemorial City. At this time, in another direction, spacetime was almost destroyed, turning into a ray of light. Chui was sad. Bobber had finally used the 9 stars reboot and he was about to die. Greenish Ash had once chased after Lu Yin, who was disguised as Night Moraes. He had the Ancestor World, the Star of Doom, and the suppressive laws of the sequence. His defense was so strong that even Lu Yin feared him. Now he had 5 arrows stuck in his body from the Arrow God. The Arrow God's arrows were difficult to block, and the Arrow of Entropy had turned order into disorder. If not for Greenish Ash's laws of the sequence, he would have died already. It wasn't that there were no experts in Immemorial City who could block the Arrow God's arrows, but the Eternal Clan had similar experts as well. Kong Tianzhao found the ancestor of the past once again, but this time without the help of the giant tree he could only break through or die. There was no other way. Immemorial City was covered in blood, and the Eternal Clan had almost killed their way to the city's walls. The bone boat smashed through the walls once again. Beneath the ground, Encio looked up, and a pair of scarlet eyes appeared in front of him. This trick is useless against me. Encio's voice rang out, and the Corpse King with the scarlet eyes shattered. Encio didn't even look at the Corpse King, instead staring at a corner. There, in a microscopic world that humans couldn't see, there was a threat. It was Bai Wuxian. At this time a delicate voice rang out, Ancestor, we meet again. Miao Miao greets you.